Chapter 1231, Big Operation of Excavating the Tree, 3. In less than a cup of tea time. All the spirit energy contained in this transparent protective screen was actually absorbed by the little stone until nothing was left. Not even a little bit of energy remained. Su Luo was completely stupefied. Su Luo looked at the little stone in astonishment. It was all absorbed by you? Huh. The small stone, wishing to continue, moved its plump body and snorted twice. The taste is not bad. It's a pity there's too little of it. Too little? Su Luo wished she could hit it for a period. That spirit energy was so concentrated that she was completely powerless. All right. This stone actually still said that it was too little. This was simply having gotten an advantage and still showing off being well-behaved. It really needed a good spanking. When did you start to be able to absorb spirit energy? Isn't it that you could only absorb fire attribute element? Su Luo curiously questioned closely. Last time, that fire source stone essence, you thought that little grandpa had eaten it in vain with not the slightest result? The little stone proudly and lovably lifted up one leg over the other, freely waving his hand. Enough. The skilled work, little grandpa has finished for you. The remaining hard work, you can do it yourself. Su Luo was suddenly depressed. Why did it seem like she was a small maid doing all the hard, unskilled work? Su Luo, seeing there wasn't much time, in passing, kicked the prattling little stone into her space. Afterwards, she prepared to dig out this divine spirit tree. That's right, Su Luo didn't intend to take the 6 divine spirit fruits and be satisfied with it. She still wanted to upend this nest that depended on this divine spirit tree. If Mo Yunfeng knew about this notion of Su Luo's, guaranteed that he would be so angry as to spit out blood. A pity that the second young master Mo, at this moment, was hugging his quilt, sleeping soundly. In his beautiful dream, he was even sucking dry all of Su Luo's blood. Therefore, he was doomed to bear this tragedy. Su Luo didn't have a convenient shovel on hand. As a result, she directly took out Chang'ing's sword. Using this most valuable treasured weapon under the heavens to dig out the divine spirit tree could be considered fitting for its status. Su Luo was afraid that the night was long with many dreams. Using the Chang'ing sword in her hands as a shovel, cutting the dirt was very fast. The divine spirit tree had already grown here for a millennium. The ground was even harder than millennium-old black ice. It was also that luckily what Su Luo held was the Chang'ing sword. If she really had come dig with a shovel, surely with the first shovel, that iron would automatically shatter. Su Luo was afraid that her speed wasn't fast enough, so she lifted out the little divine dragon to help. After all, those claws of the little divine dragon were sharp to the point that even Chang'ing's sword would yield. The little divine dragon also didn't disappoint Su Luo's trust. His pair of claws dug very quickly, truly helping out Su Luo a lot. Chunk after chunk of earth was sent flying by Su Luo. Very quickly, the divine spirit tree's root system was exposed to the air. The milky white root system, sparkling and translucently carved, with water giving it a moist luster, made it seem especially captivating. Su Luo's heart was delighted. The root system on this side was already dug out. Then, after digging out the root system across from her, the work would thus be regarded as completed. However, Su Luo's joyful celebration was somewhat too early. She hadn't expected. Mishaps always liked to occur when people's moods were most relaxed. The little divine dragon, seeing that root system's moist luster, felt it was especially captivating. As a result, our glutton of a little divine dragon directly bit down towards that root system. Hiss, an acute sound of air being drawn out sounded in the air. For a moment, the surrounding spirit energy broke out into intense chaos and unrest. The major thing was, that sound of air being drawn in was really loud. This still wasn't enough. Immediately after, a violent SSSS resisting sound sounded in succession. Su Luo suddenly was stunned. This divine spirit tree could still give off such a strange sound? Moreover, its very small body was like a snake, enchantingly twisting around. However, Su Luo very quickly returned to her senses. Not good. Chapter 1232, A Big Operation of Excavating the Tree, 4. This was Central Palace's forbidden area. Before, she didn't make a sound, therefore, she didn't alarm the strong experts guarding here. But just now, this sound got out. Thinking of this, Su Luo's heart immediately went cold. If she retreated now, she could teleport, naturally could escape unscathed. But like this, wouldn't it be failing through lack of a final effort? Su Luo wasn't willing. Thus, the Chang'ing sword in her hands danced quickly in the breeze, practically displayed to its peak. Quickly, quickly, quickly. She must take advantage of the time, while those strong experts approached to dig out this divine spirit tree. Su Luo held her breath with rapt attention. All of the spirit force in her body was concentrated into the Chang'ing sword. However, it was very obvious. It was already too late. The speed of those strong experts approaching was extremely fast. 4 strong experts at the 9th rank. The little stone proudly reported to Su Luo, "Girl, there isn't enough time. Why haven't you quickly withdrawn already?" Su Luo's heart was unwilling. She didn't even raise her eyes. If she left today, then Central Palace would absolutely raise the protection around the divine spirit tree to another level. Afterwards, if she wanted to come again to dig out this divine spirit tree, it would be even more difficult. There's still a kilometer. The small stone reported in Su Luo's mind. Because Su Luo focused all her energy on digging, the cold sweat tumbled down drop by drop from her forehead. However, she didn't seem to be aware of it, still as before, mechanically focusing on the movements of her hands. 4/5 of the root system had already been dug out. There was still the final little bit. Only a little bit more. There are still 500 meters left. The little stone's voice carried a trace of precaution. You can't beat those people. At that time when they lay out the trap, even if you can teleport, you still won't be able to escape. The little stone's words weren't just used to scare her. Rather, they were facts. Su Luo's eyes unblinkingly stared at that sparkling and translucent snow-white root system. The movements of her hands were so quick as to only leave after images. Still another 200 meters. The little stone said indifferently. There's not enough time. A thread of helplessness and disappointment flashed through Su Luo's eyes. Strive for so long. She still had to give up? If she gave up this time, in the future, it would be even more difficult to get this divine spirit tree. Su Luo had an intense unwillingness in her heart. Just when Su Luo was depressed, suddenly, a thick golden vine flew out of Su Luo's sleeve. The long vine directly wrapped around the middle of the divine spirit tree's body. With a thunderous noise, the entire divine spirit tree was pulled up by the roots. The variant red acacia tree. It was the variant red acacia tree. Su Luo's heart was immediately elated. Didn't expect that at the critical moment, the spirit-gathering tree rushed out to help her greatly. Compared to the lazy little stone that could only harp on matters, the variant red acacia tree was a lot more lovable. At this moment, endless power from heaven and earth, the intense powerful pressure of strong experts rolled towards Su Luo, pressing her down. If she didn't go now, then when would she wait until? Su Luo put away the divine spirit tree and the variant red acacia tree into her space. Then she concentrated her spirit power and softly mouthed the word, "Teleport." Afterwards, Su Luo's figure directly disappeared in place. Because now was the darkest moment before dawn, the visibility of people's eyes were very low. Separated by a distance of 200 meters, those strong experts simply didn't notice the existence of Su Luo, this person's shadow. After they came rushing over, Su Luo had already taken the divine spirit tree and disappeared long ago. From front and back, only differed by a breath's time. The divine spirit tree. These strong experts at the 9th rank immediately exploded with a violent shout. The transparent protective screen protecting the divine spirit tree had actually disappeared completely. The area where the divine spirit tree was originally planted. Now, apart from a huge mud pit, there wasn't anything else. The divine spirit tree. Central Palace's treasure within the Zhen Palace actually disappeared without a trace, just like this. Chapter 1233, Big Operation of Excavating the Tree, 5. At this moment, the 4 strong experts looked at each other in dismay. They all had a hard-to-describe shock in their eyes. How could the transparent protective screen? This was a restriction set up by the venerable ancestor Ah, who could have broken it. Moreover, breaking this restriction will certainly trigger a mechanism and naturally would issue a sound. But we completely didn't hear it. Just now, the divine spirit tree made a sound. The distance from when we rushed over, this was no more than 5 breaths' time. However, the divine spirit tree was actually just carried off like this? Chase, that person certainly hasn't gone far. Thus, these 4 strong experts, guards of Central Palace, rushed out in 4 different directions. Their speed was very quick, putting their old lives on the line to chase. However, they completely never expected that the little thief that had dug out the divine spirit tree, at this moment, was just hiding under the roof, watching the 4 of them dash away. Su Luo covered her small mouth and started to giggle. Chase oh, the farther you guys run, the more you won't catch up. Although tonight was hair-raising, fortunately, she successfully accomplished it. Therefore, our Miss Su's mood was especially good. She prepared to return to tell Nangong Luyun and the rest this good news. With these 6 divine spirit fruits, Nangong Liuyun's injury would certainly heal very quickly. Teleport. Su Luo was very pleased as she teleported. She felt that if she teleported a few more times, she could safely return to that remote little courtyard. However, Su Luo never expected that this time, her luck would be so strange. Where is this? Su Luo speechlessly looking at her surroundings. It was pitch black all around. The visibility was extremely low. However, Su Luo still clearly recognized this was a man's room. The room was arranged in a luxurious but low-key manner, a faint male smell drifting along. Su Luo, for lack of a better option, was just about to teleport once more, but at this time, she suddenly saw the figure that was asleep on the bed turn over and get up. Our Miss Su's heart was startled and directly hid behind the door screen, not daring to budge in the slightest. A fierce knock on the door came from outside. Come in. The man on the bed draped on some clothes and got up, quickly finished dressing. Second young master, a huge disaster has occurred. The tone of the man dressed in black carried a trace of anxiousness and trembled. Second young master? The light of insight flashed through Su Luo's mind. The person that could be called second young master in Central Palace, it seemed there was just one. Moreover, Su Luo even knew him. What happened? Speak slowly. This tone carried a trace of calm to placate, dependable as Mount Tai. Such a familiar voice, Su Luo directly recognized it. Sure enough, the person that was sleeping on the bed was precisely Mo Yunfeng. What kind of luck was this of hers? She actually directly broke into Mo Yunfeng's bedroom. Fortunately, her natural disposition was to be cautious and careful, so every time after teleporting, she would hold her breath with rapt attention when she appeared. Otherwise, Mo Yunfeng would have already discovered a clue the first moment she appeared. After she knew it was Mo Yunfeng, Su Luo became even more careful. Mo Yunfeng was a 9th-ranked expert. If Su Luo wasn't careful, then she would be discovered. Su Luo very carefully hid herself, and then listened to the dialogue between master and servant. The man dressed in black continued to report. Second young master, the divine spirit tree. The divine spirit tree was stolen away by someone. What did you say? Now, the steady as Mount Tai Mo Yunfeng directly leaped up. He lifted up the black-clothed man by his collar, eyes opened wide, glaring at him with disbelief. What did you say just now? Say it again. The black-clothed man's neck was bound tightly, coughing incessantly. Mo Yunfeng, seeing this, directly tossed him to the ground. Chapter 1234, Big Operation of Excavating the Tree. 6. Cough, cough, cough. Second young master, this servant didn't lie. The divine spirit tree. The divine spirit tree is missing. The 4 elders have already chased after it in all 4 directions. How could the divine spirit tree be missing? This is simply an enormous joke. Mo Yunfeng completely didn't believe it, however. The bad premonition in his heart nevertheless became stronger and stronger. Panting with rage, he pushed open the door and went out. This young master will personally go and see. The black-clothed man followed behind Imo Yunfeng and quickly left. Very quickly, Su Luo was the only one left in the room. Su Luo patted her certainly throbbing heart. Imo Yunfeng proved himself to be a ninth-ranked expert. Just now, when he got angry, the spirit energy in the air broke out into intense chaos, almost suffocating Su Luo. Fortunately, she was well hidden, otherwise, there would have been the danger of being exposed. Imo Yunfeng had already left. If she didn't leave now, when should she wait until? Su Luo, having lingering fear, patted her chest. She turned around, wanting to teleport away. However, a light suddenly flashed through Su Luo's eyes. Just leaving like this, wasn't it letting Imo Yunfeng off too easily? She had arrived in his bedroom, with great difficulty. She ought to leave something behind for him, right? What good stuff should she leave behind? Su Luo stroked her chin, cocking her head, pondering. Little stone, do you know how to write? Su Luo poked the little stone in her mind. Little stone silently rolled his eyes at Su Luo. Do you have to look down on people like this? Su Luo was ecstatic in her heart. Then, can you imitate someone else's handwriting? Little stone rolled his eyes at Su Luo. Such a low-end skill. Who can't? Su Luo realized suddenly that she was being looked down upon. She couldn't do it, all right? Clearly, it was a very high-end skill. Then, can you help me with something, all right? Every time Su Luo asked the little stone to help her, she would use a good tone to beseech him. Not okay. Why? Su Luo pouted her little mouth. No time. He was busy refining the spirit energy he had just absorbed. Little stone, you're too much. You say, just now, if I didn't bring you, how could you have absorbed the spirit energy from that transparent protective screen? You say, could you have? Su Luo feigned anger and said in accusatory manner. The little stone speechlessly looked at this great ant. Obviously, it was he who helped her absorb it, all right? Were all the people in the little Mrs. Holmes so unreasonable? Little stone, you say, having absorbed that spirit power, didn't you receive some benefit? Yes. The sage really had foresight. It was difficult to bring up a woman and a vile person. Then, you must help me in this matter. You say, will you help or not? Will help. The little stone speechlessly picked at his ears. In order to be able to quietly refine the spirit power later, in order to be able to get out of this rotten stone earlier, our grandpa stone could only be helplessly blackmailed by Su Luo. As a result, after getting the little stone's agreement, the corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a strange smile. Imo Yunfeng, since the heavens sent me here, then, I'll give you the best gift. You must kindly accept it. Oh. This was Imo Yunfeng's room. Naturally, it had a lot of things he had personally written. Su Luo scurried around in the courtyard, very quickly. She then found the location of the study. Imo Yunfeng's study was neat and clean, untainted by even a speck of dust. Su Luo was a secret agent in her former life. She was best at gathering intelligence and looking for stuff. Therefore, she effortlessly found the drawer in which Imo Yunfeng stored his letters. As for the lock on the drawer, could it a problem for our Miss Su? The answer certainly was a no. She fished out a thick pile of letters from the drawer. Su Luo then opened the letters, quickly skimming over it one by one. Chapter 1235, Big Operation of Excavating the Tree, 7. There was no classified information in these letters. It was merely letters between Central Palace and several friendly powerful families, several letters among young masters that he had dealings with. What amazed Su Luo was that Luo Haochen and Imo Yunfeng were good enough friends to write letters to each other. Luo Haochen had personally told Imo Yunfeng the matter of them going to Xian's Wood residence. Su Luo's eyes flashed slightly. Seeing that Imo Yunfeng could so quickly find Li Yao Yao, it was not by chance, rather, it was for certain. Because Imo Yunfeng had already brought people to keep watch in Xian's Wood residence's surroundings. He didn't go into Xian's Wood residence to challenge the 9 different palace halls exactly because he wanted to celebrate by fishing at an advantage. Because he had already known of the medicinal effect of the scarlet blood Ningpo figwort. This despicable vile person. Originally, Su Luo had a trace of guilt for the things she was about to do, but now, Not only did she not feel guilty, she even had a trace of pleasure from retaliating. Why would Su Luo look at Mo Yunfeng's letters? The reason was so she could imitate his handwriting. After checking the handwriting, Su Luo gave authority to Little Stone to take over her body. Just like that day when Little Stone took her place to speak Mystic Clan's language. What to write? Seeing the blank piece of paper spread out in front, Little Stone scowled. Love letter. Su Luo said concisely. Love letter. The corner of Little Stone's mouth twitched. Fine. You dictate and I'll write. Su Luo lifted her little face. In a deadly serious manner, she started to dictate. My most beloved little Chinger. 3 black lines appeared on the Little Stone's forehead, but he still loyally and conscientiously wrote down these words, imitating Mo Yunfeng's handwriting. Moreover, he had a premonition. What Su Luo would say following this would definitely be more shocking than calling her by that name. Little Chinger, I love you very much. Even though I have said this many times, every time, you would turn your face away shyly and timidly. The Little Stone's forehead was full of black lines, the hand holding the pen trembling slightly. However, his professionalism and self-accomplishment made him continue to write at a tremendous speed. I will forever remember that moonless night with high winds. I kissed you deeply and deeply caressed your graceful body. Little Stone, though feeling suffocated, continued to write using Mo Yunfeng's handwriting. That night, you were lying at my side naked, facing each other. You said that at this moment, you were full of fiery passion. In a world of ice and snow, you became a warm spring flower blooming open, so bright and beautiful. The Little Stone almost couldn't continue to write. Su Luo's, this explicit full of meat words of love, rushed out completely as if it cost nothing. Moreover, when she was dictating, she even added exaggerated feelings of deep love. Watching this, the Little Stone almost threw up. However, Su Luo continued to dictate, that night, etc., etc., etc. The more she dictated, the more romantic and erotic these words became, more wild and more explicitly sexual. Every movement, every position, every area, Su Luo seemed to have thought of it all. This service could be said to be very thorough. Just when the Little Stone was about to crumble, Su Luo finally stopped. Did you write it all down? Have a look at it yourself. Little Stone tossed aside the pen and directly withdrew his soul. Now, on the Little Stone's head, was full of sweat. Doing this thing was even more painful than cultivating. Su Luo picked up that thick pile of papers from the table, carefully looking at it page by page. Afterwards, she nodded in satisfaction. These words were written with so much feelings. As it turns out, Little Stone, you are also a master at such matters. Little Stone stumbled and almost fell down. He sent a glare at Su Luo, then simply directly went to cultivate and ignored her. Su Luo sat in the circular chair behind the desk, the smile at the corner of her lips expanding more and more. If this love letter with handwriting that was exactly the same as Mo Yunfeng's were to spread out, in addition to the sex scandal from before between Mo Yunfeng and Mo Ziqing, at that time, this matter would become very amusing. Chapter 1236, Big Operation of Excavating the Tree, 8. Then, the problem was, what must she do to have this letter spread out? Su Luo sat on the circular chair with her chin supported by one hand, pondering. Her finger tapped her cheek. Suddenly, Su Luo's eyes flashed. A scheme rapidly took shape in her mind. Since she couldn't openly and brazenly take this letter outside, then, she'd have to design a plan for those people to come over. Moreover, this would seem more natural. As for how to draw those people over here, wasn't this already ready-made? Su Luo's eyes bent, smiling very complacently. Her hand moved slightly, directly releasing the divine spirit tree's breath. Central Palace had as many experts as clouds, and the breath they were most familiar with was none other than the divine spirit tree's breath. Moreover, that divine spirit fruit tree, because it was pulled up by the roots while alive by a person, right now, its heart was still uncomfortable. As a result, it still gave off SSSS sounds of resistance endlessly. Su Luo directly lifted the divine spirit tree out, exposing its crying sound to the atmosphere. Disordered breath and the sound specific to the divine spirit tree. As a result, Central Palace's experts that had sharp perceptiveness quickly dashed over. Those 4 elders that had been chasing outwards rushed for part of the way. After finding nothing, each and every one of them returned to the manor. Just when they were entering the gates to Central Palace, they sensed the difference in this direction. The 4 of them exchanged a glance, using all of their strength to rush over here. Could it be that the divine spirit tree still hadn't left Central Palace? This notion could very possibly be true. Otherwise, with them split into 4 different directions to chase, they still couldn't even find a trace. What did the divine spirit tree signify for Central Palace? These several elders understood more thoroughly about this than anyone else. As a result, the 4 elders were like hawks, rushing past to pounce towards Imo Yunfeng's courtyard. Those 4 fools are still 1,000 meters from here. The little stone continued as before, dedicated to his work of informing Su Luo of specific happenings. Su Luo nodded her head as if taking everything seriously. She blowed dry the letter that still had a bit of ink on it. She didn't put the letter away into an envelope. Rather, she spread it open directly on the table. If she did too much, too deliberately, then traces would be left behind. On the contrary, to frankly spread it out on the table seemed even a little more real. There's still 500 meters, the little stone depressedly announced. Going. Su Luo patted the divine spirit tree's head, then took it back into her space. Immediately after was a burst of teleport, just when Su Luo's figure had disappeared from within the study. That door, with a bang sound, was heavily knocked open. The 4 elders of Central Palace descended into this tiny study like gods. Just now, the divine spirit tree's breath appeared from here. That's right, just right here. Everyone carefully searched separately. The first elder instructed loudly. Right now, he was also anxious, so anxious that his brows were beaded with sweat. Several hundred years, and he hadn't been this anxious before. Immediately, the 4 elders split in 4 directions, using all their strength to rapidly search this entire place inside and out once thoroughly. However, no matter how carefully and conscientiously they checked, they still didn't find any trace of the divine spirit tree. How can it be like this? Just now, it was clearly here, really seen a ghost. First elder's complexion was unwilling, eyes sharp as a falcon. Properly search again. Check to see if the opponent left behind any words or phrases. First elder felt that the opponent was very likely an expert. This expert who snatched away the divine spirit tree might still mock and make cutting remarks about their Central Palace. There is a letter on the table. The 4th elder's eyes brightened. Bring it over and let me have a look. First elder, in an ice-cold manner, stood in place. His face was imposing all the way down, giving off a strong natural might that wasn't anger. Chapter 1237, Big Operation of Excavating the Tree, 9. At this time, Imo Yunfeng brought a group of guards and hurriedly rushed back. Seeing the 4 elders that he normally rarely saw, Imo Yunfeng's eyes carried a trace of respect. For elders, all of you came? Yunfeng, you came. First elder looked at Imo Yunfeng kindly. This first elder had always thought highly of Imo Yunfeng, merely 20 or so years old, and had already reached 9th rank, although there was contribution from the divine spirit fruit to this. But Imo Yunfeng's future prospects after this were still very bright. Maybe the entire Imo clan would resurge and flourish in his hand. First elder, all of you came earlier. Did you see the person who stole the divine spirit tree? Imo Yunfeng's face was full of fury. When he went, he saw the forbidden area where the divine spirit tree was originally planted. Now, there was only a deep pit remaining. The entire divine spirit tree trunk had disappeared without a trace. The divine spirit tree was Central Palace's most valuable treasure. Without the divine spirit tree, what was he to do when cultivating in the future? Originally, grandfather had said, this time, after picking the divine spirit fruits, 2 will be kept and given to him. The more Imo Yunfeng thought about it, the angrier he got. The fists clenched by his sides started making cracking sounds, wishing he could smash it towards the thief who stole the divine spirit tree. A pity, he simply had no idea who stole the divine spirit tree. If I was to know who stole the divine spirit tree, I would certainly wipe out their entire clan. Imo Yunfeng, panting with rage, made this vow. A trace of wrath flashed through First Elder's eyes, then followed by disappointment. Yunfeng, this matter needs to be considered at length. I'm afraid only the few of us are far from being the opponent of the thief who stole the divine spirit tree. As a result, the several elders didn't pursue for long, before their brains cleared with a blow from the wind. Afterwards, each and every one of them hastily returned to Central Palace. Why? Because that restriction protecting the divine spirit tree was personally set up by the Great Ancestor. At that time, the Great Ancestor had said, if this protective restriction was broken by someone, an alarm would certainly be triggered. At that time, the four of them could dash out to grab the person. But now, the divine spirit tree was dug out by the roots and taken away. Not only did that transparent protective screen not issue an alarm, it had also disappeared without a trace. What did this indicate? This indicated that the person who stole the divine spirit tree was an expert, and a very high-level master among experts. There simply wasn't a single person in Central Palace capable of being that person's opponent. Not even the Great Ancestor was capable. As a result, confronted with such an expert, the several elders were so frightened that they couldn't even think about revenge. It's a pity. These several elders simply didn't know that the little thief who stole the divine spirit tree was only 8th rank in strength and nothing more. If they knew, they would eat air from the anger. Now, First Elder was still holding that letter between his fingers. He skimmed the contents of the letter with no hope. However, in the next instant, this old face of First Elder suddenly turned a darkish purple-red color. First Elder, what's wrong? Imo Yunfeng was the closest. Realizing that First Elder suddenly wouldn't take a breath, he hurriedly stepped forward to support him in concern. However, the First Elder, right now, seemed as if he had eaten gunpowder, ruthlessly tossing Imo Yunfeng out with strength that astonished people. The First Elder and Second Elder were both 10th-ranked experts. Third and Fourth Elder were at the peak of 9th rank. Here, only Imo Yunfeng, having just entered the 9th rank, was the weakest. First Elder spared no effort in the toss. Imo Yunfeng, who wasn't guarded in the slightest, was directly sent flying. His body heavily slammed into the doorframe. Then, that doorframe, with Imo Yunfeng, both flew out. First Elder. Imo Zishu brought a group of people and quickly arrived here, and saw, with his own eyes, his precious son being flung out. You could just imagine his anger. However, considering First Elder's stern power, Imo Zishu didn't dare to be presumptuous. Chapter 1238. Entering the Forbidden Area again. 1. First Elder's eyes were full of anger, and he swept an imposing glance at Imo Zishu. Imo Zishu still didn't know what had happened, and he took a step forward to hastily ask, "Don't know what Yunfeng did to anger First Elder? I'll go bring him back right now to apologize to First Elder." First Elder glared at Imo Zishu coldly, bringing up a child without a father's teaching. Imo Zishu, it's all your fault. I order you to kneel before me. First Elder was Imo Zishu's uncle's generation. It was reasonable to tell Imo Zishu to kneel. He barely had the qualifications. But the problem was that nowadays, Imo Zishu was the Central Palace's master. The stately palace master could only kneel to the sky, the earth, and his parents. He was not allowed to kneel to anyone else. Imo Zishu was struck dumb on the spot. Seeing that Imo Zishu didn't move, the anger in First Elder's heart grew even stronger. He directly smashed the letter in his hand towards Imo Zaksu's head. Raised such children who disgrace family's traditions, how do you, Imo Zishu, still have the face to go see Imo clan's successive generations of ancestors? Imo clan's face was all lost by you guys. Imo Zishu was pelted by First Elder's abuses until he was stupefied by the cursing. After returning to his senses, he hurriedly unfolded the letter in his hand. Having only seen the first word, Mo Zishu's head started to feel dizzy. When he finished reading the first paragraph, his body was on verge of collapse. After he finished reading the second paragraph, he directly spit out a mouthful of blood. Mo Zishu wanted to say that the matter was impossible. This absolutely was not real. How could Mo Yunfeng and Mo Yunqing do something like this? He wouldn't believe it even if you killed him. But, at this time, his mind recalled the rumors he had heard from not long ago. At that time, the people in the manor was abuzz from the spread of this siblings rumor. Back then, he had taken it as someone intentionally framing them, and pulled out several people, killing them as examples to others. Thus, the rumors also disappeared. But now, this letter. Could it be that the baseless claims might not necessarily be without cause? Could it be that these two siblings really did? Mo Zishu only felt his head going dizzy and becoming completely blank. His body trembled continuously because of extreme shock. He seemed to be on the verge of collapse. At this time, Mo Yunfeng had already crawled up from the ground and walked back. He felt he was beaten without reason. Naturally, he came back to have this matter clarified. First Elder, don't know where Yunfeng was wrong? You didn't even distinguish right from wrong before using such a ruthless hand. You need to have a reason, right? Mo Yunfeng used the calmest tone he had to speak, but he couldn't cover up the resentfulness and bitterness in his voice. Didn't even distinguish right from wrong? The rage on First Elder's face overflowed. Mo Zishu, you tell him why. Dad. Mo Yunfeng's face was full of innocence as he looked at his father. In reality, he really was innocent. He really was framed by a certain two-faced Mississippi. Mo Zishu used an ice-cold gaze to look at Mo Yunfeng. Eyes were intertwined with emotions like anger, shock, and remorse, etc. All these emotions mixed together, looking at Mo Yunfeng until a shiver ran down his spine. You, this unfilial bastard. Mo Zishu directly sent a heavy slap towards him. Mo Yunfeng momentarily wasn't aware, and this slap directly turned him over in place. Father. Mo Yunfeng covered his cheek and looked at Mo Zishu with rage. Just a moment ago, he was beaten by First Elder for no reason. Now, he was ruthlessly slapped by his father. Who exactly did he provoke? Look at it yourself. Mo Zishu directly flung the letter at his head. Don't tell me that this letter was not written by you. Mo Yunfeng received the letter and immediately scanned it. He only scanned it quickly and his whole body froze in a flash. His face revealed an incredulous, disbelieving expression. Chapter 1239. Entering the Forbidden Area again. 2. No. This is not real. Mo Yunfeng's entire body shook violently, opening his mouth to loudly explain. This wasn't written by me. All of this isn't real. How could something so unreasonable happen? How could he like his younger sister? Besides, this letter was written in such a disgusting and sickening manner. This wasn't something a person of his temperament would do. First Elder, Daddy, I've been framed by someone. I really am being framed by someone. This simply was not something I wrote. Mo Yunfeng defended himself intensely, yelling out that he was wronged. Added to that expression of disbelief, he looked really pitiful. However, the First Elder looked at him with remorse. You said you've been framed? Yes, I've been framed. This absolutely was not something I wrote. But, do you admit it or not? This is your handwriting? First Elder, step by step, pressed in on him forcefully. Mo Yunfeng really wanted to deny it, but this handwriting, even he himself couldn't tell if it was his or not, because it was too similar to his. Even the manner of speech was the same. First Elder snorted coldly. His eyes were ferocious. You are certain you want to deny it to the end? First Elder. Mo Yunfeng very helplessly yelled. I really didn't write this. Don't believe me. You guys can call Yunqing over. Just ask her. You'll know if it is true or not. We really have been framed by someone. You still disdain that you guys haven't lost enough face? And still want to continue losing face? First Elder waved his large hand. This matter will end here. Tomorrow, You will go into seclusion in the mountains. Don't come back before you've reached 10th rank. Mo Yunfeng's eyes suddenly opened wide. 10th rank? He wasn't Nangong Lu Yun. Heaven knows that. Without the divine spirit fruit, how many months and years he's going to spend before reaching the 10th rank. However, speaking of Nangong Lu Yun, First Elder, the person Yun Qing likes is Nangong Lu Yun. This point, many people can bear witness to I really have been framed Mo Yunfeng persistently explained, hoping First Elder could give him back an innocent verdict. If he accepted the punishment, didn't that mean that he covertly admitted that there was something between him and his younger sister? Absolutely out of the question. He was innocent You still want to put the blame for the matter on Nangong Lu Yun? First Elder saw that Mo Yunfeng was stubborn to death, wouldn't change, not willing to admit it. No matter what, momentarily, he was even more angry. He swept a glance at the 4 elders on the side and coldly said, "Just now, what else did you find? You should stop hiding it. Bring it all out." 4th Elder didn't think First Elder's eyes were so sharp. Even his little movement was noticed. 4th Elder looked at Mo Yunfeng sympathetically, then helplessly handed over a red cloth. First Elder, in a despising manner, glanced at that red cloth. Then his ice-cold gaze swept towards Mo Yunfeng. "What is this thing? How could it be found in your room?" Mo Yunfeng shook open that cloth, and immediately, his face turned purplish red. It was a piece of girl's undergarment, embroidered with mandarin ducks playing in water. On it was even embroidered the character Qing. This certainly was Mo Yunqing's undergarment. How could Mo Yunfeng recognize it at one glance? Because that time, when he sucked out the poison for Mo Yunqing, she was wearing exactly this undergarment. Mo Yunfeng felt that his whole head had gotten huge. Mo Zishu saw Mo Yunfeng's stupefied appearance. Immediately, his heart was furious. He sent a fierce kick directly towards Mo Yunfeng. "You, this unfilial son, you really did commit this disgraceful offense that violated human relations. Your daddy, I absolutely won't spare you." Chapter 1240, Entering the Forbidden Area Again. 3. Mo Zishu originally didn't believe it, but these few days the rumors spread abuzz. There were so many people willing to bear witness, and together with today's material evidence, he couldn't help but to believe. After having kicked Mo Yunfeng flying, Mo Zishu's body swayed, directly spitting out a mouthful of blood. Mo Zishu spit out 7 mouthfuls of blood in a row before his body could stabilize. First Elder originally nearly went mad from anger, but seeing Mo Zishu like this, he somewhat couldn't bear it. He looked at Mo Zishu in an ice-cold manner. "You, sitting in the position of master of the family, really haven't done a competent job. If it wasn't for the fact that your older and younger brothers had died, you would immediately be stripped of your title as this palace's master." Mo Zishu was admonished until he couldn't lift up his head. First Elder scoffed coldly. "Starting from tomorrow, Mo Yunfeng will leave for the mountains to cultivate in seclusion. As for Mo Yunqing, quickly find a man and marry her off so as to avoid any problems. Humph, after today, this matter should never be mentioned again, otherwise, you will take responsibility for the consequences." When First Elder got angry, nobody dared to talk back. Momentarily, there was a strange quietness to the atmosphere. First Elder heavily glared at Mo Yunfeng with a look that expressed resentment at him for failing to meet expectations and impatient to see improvements. Afterwards, he tossed his sleeves, turned, and left. If it wasn't for the divine spirit tree being stolen, Mo Yunfeng's, this matter, definitely wouldn't be forgiven so easily. However now, the most important thing was to retrieve the divine spirit tree. Other matters could be pushed back and wait. After First Elder scoffed heavily, he directly flung his sleeves and left. The other 3 elders looked at each other in dismay. Soon after, they also followed the First Elder and left. Very quickly, there were only the father and son that remained in the room. "Dad," Mo Yunfeng smiled bitterly. "This matter, your son really is framed." Mo Zishu glared at him with ice-cold eyes. "When you were younger, You said you'll marry Yunqing when you get older. Won't let her be married off to another family and suffer hardship. Mo Yunfeng stifled a mouthful of blood in his throat. Such stupid words. How could he have said it? Besides, when he was young, who hadn't said something retarded when they're a child? Moreover, with Yunqing being unruly and headstrong, he'd rather like Su Luo, that loathsome girl. Mo Zishu looked at him coldly, then directly tossed his sleeves and left. Duh. DDY. Mo Yunfeng wanted to pull his father to a stop, but Mo Zishu was already gone without a trace. Looking at this cold courtyard, Mo Yunfeng felt the sadness well up. He squatted and held his head in his hands gloomily. The first half of the night, he slept so well and even had a few beautiful dreams. But in less than 2 hours, this treatment was like from heaven falling into hell? Who was it, in the end, who framed him? According to logical reasoning, who would gain the most from him losing power was the most suspicious black-handed person behind the scenes. Suddenly, a figure appeared in Mo Yunfeng's mind. That person, ever since this matter happened, from beginning to end, hadn't shown himself. Moreover, this person had always been unable to deal with him and third younger sister. If something happened to him, then the one who would gain the most advantage naturally was his older brother, Mo Yunhai. Because of the next selection of candidate for the palace's master, Mo Yunfeng and his older brother Mo Yunhai's relationship was always bad. Because, according to the rules, with respect for the elder, Mo Yunhai was to be the young master of this palace. But who could have known that Mo Yunfeng would emerge as a force to be reckoned with? His strength pressured Mo Yunhai. At the same time, Mo Yunfeng's ambitions also followed to increase sharply. Moreover, Mo Yunqing and Mo Yunfeng's relationship was especially great. Mo Yunhai and Mo Yunfeng had always fought openly and maneuvered covertly. They fought like irreconcilable adversaries. Therefore, this time, Mo Yunfeng placed this attack on Mo Yunhai's head, to the extent that he directly overlooked Su Luo's side. This point was something Su Luo hadn't thought of before. Su Luo, after several teleportation, felt more scared than hurt, returned to that remote courtyard in Central Palace. Chapter 1241. Entering the Forbidden Area Again. 4. Seeing Su Luo appear safe and sound inside the room, only now did Nangong Luyuan relax his heart. At the same time, Beichen and Ziyin pounced on her. Luo, how is it? Is there any harvest? Beichen was comparably impatient. Hey, you guys look and see what this is. Su Luo waved her hand. Immediately, a fiery red ancient tree appeared in front of them. Wow! Beichen Ying's beautiful eyes immediately opened wide, his brilliant red lips opening up slightly. He was so excited that he nearly couldn't control himself. This is the divine spirit tree. When I was little, grandfather took me to look at it. Ziyin also excitedly nodded her head repeatedly. Yes, that's correct. Precisely the divine spirit tree. Beichen excitedly hugged Su Luo's arm. Before, I still thought that, at most, you will only steal a few fruits. I had no idea our family's Luo was so amazing. To actually carry back the whole divine spirit tree. This is the divine spirit tree. Ziyin was close to fainting from excitement. That's right. Before, Central Palace was really haughty. There were all kinds of restrictions to even take a glance at the divine spirit tree. Now, the divine spirit tree is in front of me. I can look at it however I want to. Really blessed. Looking at the two guys who were so excited as to almost forget their own surnames, Su Luo said in annoyance, Isn't it just a divine spirit tree? Is it really that amazing? Of course it's amazing. This divine spirit tree, even my grandfather was itching to appropriate it for himself. Beichen animatedly said, Central Palace was very stingy. Even a branch with leaves would demand a sky-high price. Moreover, this branch with leaves simply couldn't be planted. Ziyin hurriedly answered, You guys want it? Of course want it. Ziyin and Beichen Ying's little heads nodded repeatedly. Then, when the time comes, I'll give each of you one to plant. Su Luo very boldly waved her hand. Give each of us one plant? Ziyan's eyes widened. She looked at Su Luo with disbelief. Where did you come by so many divine spirit tree? The pit from the divine spirit fruit, when planted, simply won't grow. Even the branches with leaves inserted into the ground won't grow. As a result, for so many years, only Central Palace had a divine spirit tree. Su Luo beamingly said, a person from the mountains naturally has brilliant plans, but the mysteries of heaven must not be revealed. You guys just wait and receive it. Just now, she had asked, and the little stone very matter-of-factly said, the pit from the divine spirit tree might not be able to plant it anywhere else, but it can grow when planted in her space. Oh, that's right. Forget to tell you guys. Su Luo smilingly told everybody in a lively and realistic way about her framing Mo Yunfeng. Puffed, Nangong Lu Yun, who was just drinking water, gracelessly spit out a mouthful of water. Bei Qining covered his stomach, laughing so hard that he was almost rolling on the ground. Ziyan's whole body was curled onto Su Luo. She hugged her stomach and directly cried that it hurts. She laughed while giving Su Luo a thumbs up. Awesome. Really, too awesome. Great. Really, too great. Worthy of being our family's weirdest Luo girl. Everyone was talking and laughing. Time passed quickly to arrive at the second day. Su Luo and the others were all curious about the follow-up to Mo Yunfeng's matter. Without using much effort in asking around, they were able to find out. Mo Yunfeng sought Mo Yunhai to fight. The two brothers broke their relationship sharply. In the end, both sides suffered, both could not get up from their beds. It was estimated that they would stay in bed for at least a month. A month's time, very good in this period of time, Mo Yunfeng won't come to bother them. They could concentrate on cultivating. Su Luo thought secretly. However, the world changes whether you wanted it or not. Su Luo and the others wanted to restrain themselves, but how could Central Palace's people let them be? Chapter 1242. Entering the Forbidden Area again. 5. After First Elder finished being angry, he returned to his senses. This time, Central Palace's losses were admittedly huge, but having obtained Su Luo, this human blood medicine, whose blood was mixed with scarlet blood Ningpo figwort, this was an extremely rare, good event. Therefore, First Elder's plan turned to Su Luo. Not only did they dispatch people to tightly guard that remote courtyard, at the same time, people were dispatched to get Su Luo's blood. How could Su Luo give them her blood? In order to stall for time, Su Luo had no choice but to give up a small amount of her blood. Of course, this time, she put in traces of poison, thus letting First Elder know the news that she was slowly in the process of detoxification. Simply too vile. Looking at the people who came for blood strutting out, Ziyan clenched her fists in anger. If Luo Luo's blood continues to flow like this, how can her body take it? A cold intent flashed through Su Luo's eyes. Since Central Palace wants to court disaster, nobody can save it. She originally had wanted to stop, but since Central Palace didn't want to stop, then everyone will continue to play. Seeing the curtain of night gradually cover the sky, the corner of Su Luo's mouth pulled into a sly sneer. The thickness of night. All around was pitch black as ink. You couldn't see the fingers on your hand. Because of the matter of the divine spirit tree being stolen, the entire Central Palace's security was even stricter than before. Beat a gong every 10 steps, whistle every 5 steps, in addition to a steady flow of patrolling troops. The whole security, it was almost impossible to escape. This security, with regards to other people, was definitely inescapable, but for Su Luo, it was merely like decoration. Because she could teleport, therefore, nobody could find traces of her. This time, Su Luo's objective was very simple and very clear: Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion. With regards to treasure storage pavilions, Su Luo was not at all unfamiliar with them. At that time, when she hadn't been in this strange world for long, Su Luo had groped her way into Su Manor's treasure storage pavilion and turned it upside down while wantonly stealing. It was a pity that at that time, she didn't have space on hand, so she couldn't take away a lot of the treasures. This time was different. Su Luo's space was huge without limit. It wasn't much pressure for her to take the entire treasure storage pavilion with her. The treasure storage pavilion was mysterious and obscure. Around it, experts guarded it all year round. Let alone to say, because of the theft of the divine spirit tree, the number of experts guarding here has since been doubled. The door to the treasure storage pavilion was refined by the #1 craftsman in the continent. Apart from the palace master, nobody else had the key to it. But these, for Su Luo, were all merely just fleeting clouds. No matter how many people guarded the outside, no matter how awesome the lock, Su Luo, with just one teleport, would dispatch it all. Therefore, under Central Palace's strict security, where even a fly could not enter the treasure storage pavilion, Su Luo only needed to teleport and directly went inside. Su Luo opened her eyes to look at the situation inside the treasure storage pavilion. She couldn't help but to suck in a cold breath of air. Worthy of being one of the 10 great families' treasure storage pavilion, it was indeed formidable and imposing. Altogether, there were 5 rows of shelves. The shelves were made from precious 1,000-year-old red sandalwood, emitting a faint, red sandalwood fragrance. Every red sandalwood shelf was placed with all sorts of treasures. The first row was medicinal herbs, second row was pills, third row was weapons, fourth row was secret martial arts books, and fifth row was actually crystal stones. Isn't this millennium-old linji mushroom? Su Luo randomly picked up a purple linji mushroom from the shelf, a rare happiness flashing through her eyes. Purple linji mushroom was a premium product among linji mushrooms. A millennium-old purple linji mushroom was even rarer. Worthy of being Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion, every single thing in this room would make people envious. Chapter 1243. Entering the Forbidden Area Again. 6. This is millennium-old Ningpo figwort. Never expected that Central Palace had collected such a good thing. Su Luo opened a small box and took out a long, tasseled ginseng. What's this? Chinese wisteria fruit? Su Luo became more and more astonished. Flowerless grass? 7-flavored absolute colored flower? All of these were good stuff. The smile on Su Luo's face grew increasingly bigger and bigger, wider and wider. Awoo, the little divine dragon stood straight up, 2 tiny powerful claws slapping at the wall. Howl woo, the little 9-tailed spirit fox stood side by side with the little divine dragon. Her little tail raised up high, a pair of glass-colored eyes flashing with rays of excitement. Even the unperturbed temperament of the variant red acacia tree after its change, at this time, also swayed its golden leaves, expressing that it was very excited as well. Su Luo was worried that they were so excited that they would give off sounds of movement. So, she set up some basic rules with them. I can let you guys out, but you guys are not allowed to make any sounds of movements. You know that you guys must be extremely quiet, right? The several little spirit pets nodded uniformly, with eyes shining like stars. Consequently, Su Luo waved her hand in a wide arc, and the 3 spirit pets appeared in front of Su Luo altogether. Take the initiative to move quietly, with fast speed and graceful posture. Su Luo had an elevated, imposing posture. Eat as much as you can. What you can't eat, wrap it up to go. Now, let the operation begin. As soon as Su Luo gave the command, the 3 spirit pets scuttled in 3 different directions. For the moment, this most mysterious treasure storage pavilion in the Central Palace seemed to have been invaded by bandits and suffered a devastation. Su Luo also didn't stop. She walked and roamed. If she saw something suitable, she would stuff it into her mouth. What she couldn't eat now, she tossed into her space. Very quickly, the things in her space piled up to the size of a small mountain. How is it that there's no trace of spirit energy on this weapon? After strolling through the medicinal herbs shelf, when she walked to the weapons shelf, her eyes shone slightly. According to logic, weapons that could be arranged in the treasure storage pavilion were all priceless treasures, containing extremely rich spirit energy. However, what really puzzled Su Luo was that there was a weapon that seemed dull and didn't shine, no different than a regular long sword. Su Luo picked up the weapon out of curiosity and carefully examined it. Her eyebrows puckered up slightly. Although this sword was not as good as Chang'ing's sword, but it was not much different. How could it not have a trace of spirit energy? In the end, how could this be? Unable to see to the bottom of this, Su Luo also didn't waste much effort on it. She had Nangong Luyun, this super brain, present, so she only needed to go ask him and she would get the answer. Why waste energy on it? Su Luo tossed the sword into her space in passing. When she thought about it, coming over once wasn't easy. She should just carry off all these weapons, to avoid the possibility that when the time came, the Mo clan would attack them with these weapons. This thought moved Su Luo's heart, and a whole row of more than 10 ancient famous swords were taken into her space. Su Luo's group, inside the treasure storage pavilion, plundered without restraint, and the places they passed were like the passing of locusts. A single grain of dust was not left behind. Very quickly, the collection of treasures in the treasure storage pavilion was wiped clean by Su Luo and the others, until only 4 empty walls remained. After eating too much spirit medicine, Su Luo felt that her belly had bloated up, her whole body feeling painfully hot. This was not surprising. Every one of the spirit medicine here was a priceless treasure. Just age alone was over a millennium old. Since Su Luo ate so many in one go, how could her body not feel painfully hot? Sure enough, she was still too greedy, Su Luo sighed. With no time to think some more, Su Luo sat on the ground cross-legged, and slowly spun the spirit energy in her abdomen to go into her blood, to absorb the medical effect perfectly. Chapter 1244, Entering the Forbidden Area Again, 7. Right now, not only did Su Luo's blood contain the medicinal properties from the scarlet blood Ningpo figwort at the same time, it also contained the purple Lingji mushroom, millennium-old Ningpo figwort, and other similar medicinal effects. These were all very fantastically useful towards Su Luo's cultivation and for restoring her body. But Su Luo definitely wouldn't be able to absorb it all right now, in such a short period of time. Just when Su Luo was slowly blending the drugs in her body, the little spirit fox and the little divine dragon tried to grab a 7-flavored absolute colored flower, and they actually started to fight. Boom, the little divine dragon, in a moment of desperation, directly sprayed out a streak of flame. The treasure storage pavilion that was originally pitch black and lacked light, because of this flame that arose abruptly, immediately became incomparably bright and dazzling. Su Luo opened her eyes, her head full of black lines. These 2 little brats really needed a spanking. Who would go to other people's family to steal and still play with flame? Wasn't this directly telling those people that there were thieves? Quickly come and catch them all? At this time, the experts guarding around the treasure storage pavilion were immediately riled up. There are movements inside the treasure storage pavilion. A cry of alarm rolled up thousands of waves into a pile. As a result, a group of people, like wolves and tigers, threw themselves over here. A not-so-good premonition flashed through Su Luo's heart. Quick, all of you return. Su Luo issued the summon in her mind. Immediately, one after another, the spirit pets that had eaten their fill, drank their fill, and grabbed and robbed everything until it was empty, gathered together. With one wave of Su Luo's hand, all of these spirit pets entered Su Luo's space. At the same time, a formidable, powerful spirit force struck heavily towards the treasure storage pavilion. Friend, since you dare to come to Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion, then I ask you to come out and chat. First Elder's tone was ice-cold, as if it came from hell. First, it was the divine spirit tree being dug out. Then, closely following it, was the treasure storage pavilion being visited by thieves. These repeated provocations angered the First Elder, whose temperament wasn't good to begin with, until his 5 viscera and 6 spleens were about to burn with rage. Although Su Luo suffered the effect from First Elder's powerful pressure, she still escaped at the critical moment. The First Elder, bringing a group of people, flying over in a rage, finally arrived. The door was still locked. There were no marks indicating that it was pried open before. However, First Elder and Palace Master Mo exchanged a glance. Both of their expressions weren't good. Just now, the flame that was produced inside, the odds that it was produced by a spirit treasure was very low. The greatest possibility was that it was man-made. Bangs sounded, and the door was heavily pushed open. After seeing the circumstances inside, First Elder's body swayed, directly spitting out a mouthful of blood. Palace Master Mo's reaction wasn't that much better than the First Elder's. His entire person seemed to have been hacked by lightning, standing in place in a daze. His eyes were blank as he stared at the entirely empty treasure storage pavilion. His entire body didn't feel good. Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion. So many years' accumulation, just in a blink of an eye, were all emptied by a person. The scene before their eyes were like mice having passed through. Not even a stalk of rice or straw was left behind. PFFF Palace Master Mo violently spurted out a mouthful of blood, sprinkled over 10 meters before him. Chase. I order all of you to chase. Palace Master Mo frantically shouted. Right now, his eyes were bloodshot. He looked malevolent and terrifying. His entire face was twisted like a madman. The spirit force in his body was on the edge of breaking out frantically. In fact, you really couldn't blame him. First, it was this palace's treasure, the divine spirit tree, that was dug out by the roots and taken away. Then, there was the treasure storage pavilion that was completely emptied by someone. Each of these matters was digging at Central Palace's root saw. The Central Palace that had the divine spirit tree, among the ranking of the 10 powers in the continent, was second only to Purgatory City. However, the Central Palace that lost the divine spirit tree, its strength directly declined to the position counting backwards. If it was said before that it was still tolerable, now, this matter that just occurred made Palace Master Mo directly collapse. The treasure storage pavilion with treasures that Central Palace had accumulated for over 1,000 years, spirit medicine, weapons, secret martial arts books. Chapter 1245. Entering the Forbidden Area again. 8. Every one of the things in there, if taken out, were all precious treasures, but now, all of it had disappeared. How could Central Palace exist in the future? Thinking of this, Palace Master Mo once again spurted out a mouthful of blood. Sinna, really is Sinna. A flash of strange light flashed through First Elder's eyes. If it was not for your 2 children doing that kind of thing, causing this matter, Mo family's luck wouldn't have changed to be so weak in a flash. It's them. All of this is them harming Mo family. Frantic hatred flashed through First Elder's eyes. If Mo Yunfeng was present, very likely, he would have been choked to death by First Elder. Confronted with this kind of unutterable accusation, Palace Master Mo's body swayed, and he did his best to remain cool-headed. First Elder, the theft of treasure storage pavilion is man-made. Just now, that flame, you also saw it. Palace Master Mo did not agree to have the accusation placed on Mo Yunfeng and Mo Yunqing's body. Although the both of them had sinned, if they were to carry this charge, they would both be sacrificed while alive. How could he have the heart to lose his most loved son and daughter all of a sudden? You think it's done by people, then where is the person? A strange light flashed in First Elder's eyes. The lock wasn't opened. A person had disappeared without a trace. You think this is something a person can do? Place Master Mo was silenced. This really was not something a person could do. However, I heard the space laws mixed with spirit dance steps could have the ability to teleport. Palace Master Mo's words couldn't even convince himself. First Elder coldly smiled. You think, now, how many space mages are in this world? Let alone to say she needs to understand teleport? Palace Master Mo became silent. Don't need to mention First Elder and Palace Master Mo's matter over here, just speaking of Su Luo. Su Luo had only teleported halfway, and was interrupted by First Elder's powerful pressure. Originally, Su Luo had correctly calculated the direction and route. This time, she would definitely teleport to the top of an ancient tree 1,000 meters away. Then, with another teleport, she would arrive at the Iron Tower not far away. Then, followed by another teleport. This was the route Su Luo planned in advance. But now, Because teleport was interrupted halfway, therefore, Su Luo's escape route was forcibly changed. Originally, it was in the westwards direction. Now, it directly slanted east. This wasn't the most important point. The important point was that in the east, that was the direction to the forbidden area. Su Luo was interrupted like this and directly entered the forbidden area again, where she had stolen the tree. What made Su Luo almost collapse was, when she opened her eyes, she discovered that she was underneath an ancient, flourishing tree. And when she lifted her head to look on the tree with exuberant branches and leaves, now, an expert was just perched there. This expert had his right hand over his forehead, looking in all four directions nonstop, observing every movement in the surroundings. This was a hidden sentry. Fortunately, this expert, thanks to his dedicated inertia, his gaze continued to survey the surroundings and didn't lower his head to look down. Su Luo didn't make a bit of noise. She closed her eyes and mouthed in a low voice, "Teleport." In the blink of an eye, Su Luo's figure had disappeared from underneath the tree. At this moment, the expert felt a slight spirit power fluctuation from under the tree. He lowered his head and swept by, and didn't see anything, then once again carefully surveyed all directions for movements. Now, Su Luo teleported without calculating a good location. Rather, she left it to luck. However, this time, Su Luo's luck was thoroughly bad. This teleport, Su Luo actually teleported to the gate of a well-known palace hall. And surrounding this hall was guarded by a countless number of experts. Su Luo didn't have time to think and directly rushed into the door. Such a close call. Su Luo patted her chest, taking a deep breath. Fortunately, she dodged quickly, otherwise, she would have been discovered by those experts outside. Chapter 1246, Entering the Forbidden Area Again, 9. However, this teleport was really not secure, especially when it came to fleeing for one's life. If she didn't have an escape route planned out, she could very easily get lost from fleeing. Su Luo didn't have time to think of other things. The most important matter right now was to determine where she was at. Where was this place? A massive question mark appeared over Su Luo's head. This palace hall wasn't big inside. The decorations were all low-key and luxurious. All around was terribly quiet. After Su Luo waited for quite a while and didn't discover any other movements, she quietly released some spirit power to probe the situation in her surroundings. This palace hall was deathly still, as if there wasn't anything alive in it. However, if nothing alive was in here, then why would there be so many layers of people protecting this place? Su Luo thought about it, then released the little divine dragon from her space. The little divine dragon's ability to find the path to treasure was absolutely something nobody could compare to. Su Luo muttered several sentences by the little divine dragon's ear, then placed him on the ground. The little divine dragon's nose sniffed the air, then very quickly, he decided on a direction. He opened his little legs and dashed over. Su Luo followed behind the little divine dragon, advancing stealthily along the way and taking precautions. After bypassing 3 forks in the road, up ahead, they had arrived at a stone room. The little divine dragon stopped outside this stone room, grabbing his ears and scratching his cheeks. He wanted to go in but couldn't go in. Seeing Su Luo come over, the little divine dragon, in one stride, rushed into Su Luo's arms. His little claw pointed at that stone door. "Go in, go in." The little divine dragon no longer was like when he was an infant, only knowing how to call out a woo non-stop. Right now, he could already say a few simple words. "What's inside there?" Su Luo cautiously asked. However, the little divine dragon having such an excited appearance, Su Luo could also guess, inside, there certainly was the little divine dragon's favorite treasure. Really huge, purple, crystal stone. The little divine dragon excitedly gestured with his 2 little paws, drawing a bun-sized circle over his head. That big of a purple-colored crystal stone? Impossible, right? Su Luo asked in disbelief. Possible, possible. The little divine dragon was afraid Su Luo wouldn't believe him, He grabbed her and persistently walked her to the door of the stone room. If it was really like the way the little divine dragon said, and there was really such a huge purple-colored crystal stone, then she must not miss it. As everyone knew, the bigger the size of the crystal stone, the more spirit power it contained and the purer it was. Such a large purple-colored crystal stone, that was something much sought after, but which one rarely came across. Even Su Luo had never seen one like it. Su Luo carried the little divine dragon. Her mind moved. When she opened her eyes again, she was already inside the stone room. With the ability to teleport, every kind of lock, with regards to Su Luo, were merely decorative items. Su Luo opened her eyes and carefully surveyed her surroundings. This stone room was very large. Inside was very empty. At one glance, she could see to the end of the room. However, in the center of the stone room, an old man sat with his legs crossed. Looking from Su Luo's angle, she could only see his back. One could see this old man with gray hair casually draped over his shoulder. He was dressed in a black robe. The long robe was made from black silk from the East Sea. Its value was considerable, but it could last long and not rot. At this time, powerful spirit force encircled this elderly man, as if all the spirit power from heaven and earth was transferred into his body. A really formidable elderly man. Su Luo's heart was secretly startled. The feeling this elderly man gave her was terrifying. This was the kind of reverence of looking up at a huge mountain, making it impossible for people's heart to resist. Just at this time, the little divine dragon struggled free from Su Luo's arms. His little legs took very quick strides, running to the front of the elderly man. Su Luo's heart was alarmed, taking hurried steps to chase after him. Purple-colored crystal stone. At this moment, on the ground before the elderly man, a row of crystal stones was arranged there. A total of 7 pieces, every piece was the size of an adult's fist. Chapter 1247, Recoil of Madness, 1. So many large purple-colored crystal stones, Su Luo's eyes were full of stars as she excitedly looked at the spread of purple-colored crystal stones before the elderly man. Every one of these purple-colored crystal stones was the size of a fist, suffused with a sparkling and translucent, pure purple color. That color and luster appeared as if it had been washed by water before, so clear, bright, and penetrating. The little divine dragon wanted to directly rush up and expropriate these plump, adorable purple-colored crystal stones for himself. Su Luo hurriedly pulled him to a stop and held him in her arms. Too funny. If he disturbed that elderly man's meditation, she and the little divine dragon were not enough for him to exterminate with just one finger. The powerful pressure and imposing energy this elderly man gave off, Su Luo had only seen it on the body of her teacher. A strong expert that could be placed on par with her teacher, how could he possibly be a simple person? A thread of transparent saliva hung at the corner of the little divine dragon's mouth, eyes staring fixedly at that row of purple-colored crystal stones. Apart from this, his amber-colored eyes couldn't see anything else. Su Luo hid behind a stone pillar, communicating with the little divine dragon in a low voice. Don't be anxious, these purple-colored crystal stones will certainly be ours. The little divine dragon's gaze unblinkingly staring at that row of purple-colored crystal stones, and absent-mindedly nodded his head. Su Luo once again guided patiently to say, however, that elderly man seems to be very powerful. We must think of an absolutely safe plan. Otherwise, the consequences would be too horrible to contemplate. The little divine dragon absent-mindedly nodded his head again, but his gaze was still stuck to that row of purple-colored crystal stones. Purple-colored crystal stones were simply too tasty and too attractive. But how could she get a hold of it, so that the elderly man wouldn't be able to sense it? Su Luo slanted her head to think. Very quickly, a plan appeared. She had it. How could she have forgotten? Besides having 2 spirit pets, she also had a plant pet. Recalling that at the time, she was locked in an underground room by Yin Xia, that old witch. At that time, the Varian acacia tree was on its first change. Even then, it was able to roll up Li Yao Yao and toss her away. Then, after the second change, this plant pet of hers should be even more powerful, right? Su Luo's spirit entered her space to search and started to communicate with variant acacia tree. Ever since the variant acacia tree swallowed that plant essence and it changed for the second time, then it had always wanted to find an opportunity to do some meritorious work. To no avail, because there were too many people and magical beasts around Little Master to help her. It simply couldn't insert a hand to help. Now, there was a chance to help. It naturally wouldn't let this chance slip by. Therefore, once Su Luo mentioned it, it agreed in haste and even patted its chest to immediately carry out this order, also expressing that it guaranteed that the mission would be completed. Take it easy. I'd rather not get it than disturb that elderly man, Su Luo seriously instructed. At a glance, you could tell that this old man was the type that was super difficult to deal with when provoked. Only, if Su Luo was too leisurely after eating her full, would she be stupid enough to wake him up? If it weren't for those purple-colored crystal stones, the Su Luo who had always believed that a wise man looked after his own hide would have already run far away, carrying the little divine dragon with her. Su Luo carried the little divine dragon and hid behind a white-colored column at the same time. A thin gold-colored vine slowly climbed out of Su Luo's sleeves, quietly approaching the purple-colored crystal stones in front of the elderly man. The gold-colored vine was very thin, so thin that even the naked eye couldn't see it clearly. Moreover, its movements were very slow, so slow like a crawling snail. The most important thing was, this golden vine didn't make a trace of noise, not even making a bit of wave in the atmosphere. Seeing that golden vine getting closer and closer to that elderly man, closer and closer, Su Luo's heart quietly started to beat like a drum. Her fists were clenched tightly. In her heart, she continued to cheer on that golden vine. Don't be discovered, by all means, must not be discovered. Chapter 1248, Recoil of Madness, 2. Just when Su Luo was so nervous that she didn't dare breathe, the golden vine got close to the purple-colored crystal stone closest to her. Afterwards, it quietly wrapped up that crystal. Just when the golden vine was about to fly back, suddenly, that elderly man's body shifted slightly. Su Luo's heart immediately jumped into her throat. Her luck couldn't be this bad, right? This elderly man wouldn't just wake up like this, right? Su Luo's heart violently throbbed, but very quickly, she adjusted back to normal. She adjusted her body's functions to the slowest tempo. Only like this could she achieve her aim through underhanded means and not let that elderly man discover her presence. That golden vine also laid on the ground motionless, not daring to budge even a bit. The figure of the meditating elderly man swayed, but he didn't open his eyes and also didn't make other movements. However, the spirit power around his body became somewhat denser once again. Su Luo waited for a long time and saw that this old man was once again in the selfless cultivation state before she relaxed her guard. Just now, that was a close call. She was almost discovered. Su Luo wiped away at the non-existent sweat on her forehead. Now, under Su Luo's command, the golden vine wrapped up that purple-colored crystal stone and slowly pulled back. Finally, the purple-colored crystal stone that was fetched back with great difficulty fell into Su Luo's hand at last. The little divine dragon in Su Luo's arms, once again, his sparkling, transparent saliva with dripping sounds, fell down. Su Luo, in annoyance, stuffed this huge piece of crystal stone into the little divine dragon's mouth. Take it, hold it, and nibble on it slowly. Afraid that the sound that the little divine dragon made when nibbling on that crystal was too loud and would wake that elderly man currently cultivating, as a result Su Luo directly delivered the little divine dragon into her space. Moreover, the corner of Su Luo's mouth curved up into a pondering arc. She still had a little spirit fox in her space. This little brat was also a glutton. It was also a master that saw good stuff and would look forward to it. She just let the little divine dragon go play with the little spirit fox. Then, this side of the room, Su Luo had already fixed her gaze on the other 6 purple-colored crystal stones. In this world, purple-colored crystal stones were really rare. Even if someone had it, it would also be in the hands of absolute experts and under their control. Even if Su Luo had a great amount of wealth in her hand, she also simply had no access to buy it. Therefore, Su Luo's plan was calculated onto those 6 purple-colored crystal stones. Looking helplessly at the treasure in front of her and not take it, this action was not something someone of Su Luo's nature could do. However, this old man before her eyes, Su Luo had one hand supporting her chin. Her beautiful eyes wandered around quick-wittedly. In regards to an expert's pressure in Central Palace, the only one who was on par with teacher was that mysterious Imo family's ancestor. No need to guess, this old man absolutely was Central Palace's elder ancestor. Imo Yunfeng used promises and threats to invite her group to Central Palace, just to get Su Luo's blood. Just from this point, her conflict with Central Palace would inevitably exist. Moreover, it was a bitter state of, you live I die. Forget about the rest of the people in Central Palace. If this elder ancestor was to undertake the task, even at Nangong Liuyun's peak period, he still might not be able to beat this old man. If she didn't come across this, then fine. Now, even the heavens were helping her. If she didn't grasp this opportunity, wouldn't it be too great of a waste? Wouldn't she be hacked by lightning then? Looking at that old man immersed in cultivation and totally oblivious to the arriving danger, the corner of Su Luo's mouth arched up into a cold smile. Old man, if you must blame someone, blame that your Central Palace's schemes were not principled. This matter can't be blamed on me, oh. Su Luo silently said this sentence in her heart. Afterwards, she started to communicate with the golden vine. When the golden vine was preparing to snatch the second purple-colored crystal stone, Su Luo coldly smiled. She took out a piece of crystal stone about the same size as that purple-colored crystal stone. Chapter 1249, Recoil of Madness, 3. This crystal stone, when Su Luo was cultivating, had all of its spirit powers inside absorbed by Su Luo. Now, all that remained was an empty shell. Clenching this empty shell, the smile at the corner of Su Luo's mouth widened even more. Su Luo remembered, at the time when she was leaving, Master had given her a bottle of black medicinal liquid. He had warned her that if it wasn't critical, she mustn't use it rashly. This black medicinal liquid was a poison that eroded away a person's mind, especially those cultivating at a critical juncture. Once a person's strength of mind was eroded by this black medicinal liquid, it was extremely easy for that person to suffer recoil of madness. In the 9 different palace halls, because Su Luo was always protected by Nangong Liuyun, so she had no opportunity to use this bottle of black medicinal liquid. But now, Su Luo's eyes flashed and the corner of her mouth hooked up. Elder Ancestor Imo, this bottle of black medicinal liquid will be given to you to enjoy. You must, by all means, not be too polite. Su Luo poured the black medicinal liquid into the empty crystal stone shell. After filling it up, she sealed the entrance. Then, she handed it over to the golden vine. Deliver this crystal stone over to where that purple-colored crystal stone was. Although the golden vine didn't know what Su Luo was thinking, however, it firmly carried out Master's orders. It wrapped up this crystal stone and very carefully moved towards the front of this elderly man. The closer it got to old man Imo, the more cautious its movement would be. Finally, the variant acacia tree's golden vine carefully placed that crystal stone full of black medicinal liquid in place. Then, it wrapped up another purple-colored crystal stone and quietly retreated. This back and forth, the golden vine's courage also increased, its movements also becoming more skillful. Very quickly, the 6 purple-colored crystal stones in front of Old Man Imo were all changed into crystals containing the black medicinal liquid. Su Luo could be regarded as having considered well. She made those crystal stones' exterior look exactly like a purple-colored crystal stone. At first glance, it really looked like a purple-colored crystal stone. Let alone to say that the black medicinal liquid, although it had the word black in its name, it was actually a transparent, colorless liquid. Its color had nothing to do with the color black. This black mainly pointed to the fact that after entering a person's brain, it would form black spots. There was still one that remained. Just when the golden vine was about to follow the set pattern and retrieve the last purple-colored crystal stone, suddenly, the spirit power around Old Man Mo lightened a lot. Not good. Su Luo secretly cried in her heart. She had no time to think. She immediately instructed the golden vine to retreat. Forget about that last purple-colored crystal stone. It's more important to preserve one's life. When the golden vine withdrew into Su Luo's sleeves like a bolt of lightning, that elder ancestor Mo sitting there grabbed the last purple-colored crystal stone and started to cultivate to absorb it. His eyes didn't open and were still tightly closed. Following the gradual reduction in the spirit force in the purple-colored crystal stone, the spirit force in Old Man Mo's body gradually increased. Su Luo shrank behind a stone pillar and adjusted her own heartbeat and breathing to the lowest speed. Now, she was like a hibernating cobra, motionless and concealed, as if she was dead. Only like this was she fortunate enough to escape Old Man Mo's senses. Otherwise, even 100 Su Luos weren't enough for him to kill. Old Man Mo, at this moment, had arrived at a critical juncture during cultivation. One purple-colored crystal stone was far from fulfilling his need. One could see his eyes closed as he grabbed the second purple crystal stone in passing. At this moment, Su Luo's heart jumped to her throat. She wanted to leave, but Old Man Mo's perception was clearest at this time. The spirit force he released filled the air all around. As long as Su Luo moved even a little, he would be able to sense her. As a result, Su Luo motionlessly pressed tightly to the wall, pretending as if she didn't exist. Old Man Mo held that crystal stone with his right hand, and didn't even think before absorbing the spirit force in that crystal. Chapter 1250, Recoil of Madness. 4. The black medicine and the spirit energy inside the crystal stone were extremely similar. Only like this was it able to catch people off guard and entrap them. Old Man Mo was caught off guard. In one mouthful, he absorbed all of the black medicine contained inside the crystal stone. Su Luo's heart violently throbbed for a moment. Could Old Man Mo realize the difference? Could he distinguish it? Su Luo's heart continued to be tangled on this question. However, Old Man Mo's action made Su Luo's heart return to its original position. Old Man Mo seemed to be annoyed that there was too little spirit energy in this crystal stone. After absorbing it, he immediately threw it aside and grabbed a second crystal stone to absorb from. The black medicine was worthy of being Master's treasure buried in the bottom of the trunk. It even managed to deceive an expert like Old Man Mo. Su Luo quietly stretched out her head and saw that Old Man Mo had absorbed that line of crystal stones one by one, like he was taking bites out of an apple. Out of that line of 7 crystal stones, Su Luo had poured black medicine into 6 of them. Luckily, this old man was in the most critical juncture of his cultivation. Otherwise, the moment he opened his eyes, he would be able to see the difference. Su Luo thought with lingering fear in her heart. Seeing Old Man Mo's face get more and more red, and sensing that the spirit energy around his body was beginning to break out into chaos, Su Luo knew that if she didn't leave now, and instead waited until Old Man Mo went into a rage, she would definitely not be able to leave. Su Luo held her breath with rapt attention, bringing her mind to the highest degree of concentration, and then mouthed the words, "Teleport." Consequently, Su Luo, who was hiding behind the pillar, immediately teleported away. Old Man Mo's heart seemed to sense a subtle fluctuation in space, but at this time, he was already unable to deal with other things. Currently, his entire body felt as if it was roasting above a fire. The blood throughout his body boiled up like lava. These things were bearable. However, the most unbearable thing for Old Man Mo was that black spots started to appear in his mind. These black spots were like a strange virus. After entering his mind, it invaded very quickly. Then, 1 gave birth to 2, 2 gave birth to 4, 4 gave birth to 8. Just like this, the virus spread out endlessly. with a speed so fast that it seemed to happen in the blink of an eye. 10th rank and above was the Sacred Domain. The Sacred Domain was divided into 3 ranks, distinguished as Commander, Saint, and Sovereign ranks. Old Man Emo was originally of the Commander rank, but he was now breaking through to the Saint rank. As long as he broke through to the Saint rank, the ones who would be on par with him in the continent could be counted on one's fingers. After all, in this entire continent, there were only 5 publicly known saints. As long as he broke through to the saint rank, the elder ancestor of the Emo family could then lead Central Palace onto the road of a super influential family. However, even if this elder ancestor coughed up blood, he would never have imagined that right at this most critical juncture of his breakthrough, the purple-colored crystal stones assisting his breakthrough would be replaced with crystal stones that were filled with black medicinal liquid. One had to know that during a breakthrough, one's 5 senses would be sealed. Additionally, the black medicine was extremely similar to spirit energy, so the elder ancestor of the Emo family was fooled. It didn't matter that he had fallen for this trap. Although it hurt to lose those purple-colored crystal stones, he could still accept it reluctantly. However, the gravest matter was that at this moment, Emo family's elder ancestor's mind was being occupied by this black medicine. His entire sea of knowledge soon became a black ocean. Oh! Old Man Emo bit his tongue, forcing himself to wake up. The moment his head cleared up and he saw the crystal stone shells he had thrown to the ground, the elder ancestor of the Emo family, who had always been steady like empty tie, suddenly flushed red. In his eyes, flames ignited like a raging inferno. It's fake. The purple-colored crystal stones were fake. With trembling hands, Old Man Emo picked up an empty shell, and when he saw that transparent liquid clearly, his entire person no longer felt good. Chapter 1251, Recoil of Madness, 5. This must be the black medicinal liquid. Old Man Mo's mind was already occupied by the black medicinal liquid. If he was still unable to figure it out, then wouldn't he be an idiot? Who was it? Just who was it, in the end? Who was it that exchanged my purple-colored crystal stones? Old Man Emo looked up to the sky and madly roared. As an expert who was close to becoming a sovereign, his shout of wrath was as if he was about to collapse. It was like a tremendous wave overflowing to the sky, and also like the earth was quaking and the mountains were shaking. The entire palace hall shook violently, and a countless amount of sand and stone, with crashing sounds, fell down. Fortunately, Suluo's luck was good, and she'd run fast enough. Otherwise, considering how close she was to the violent Old Man Emo, she would have borne the brunt of the effect. An insignificant 8th rank, if she were attacked by the formidable power of Old Man Emo, who was a sacred master, she would have died right then. The experts guarding outside of the palace hall were currently shaken dizzy by this roar. Blood flowed out from their noses, and each one of them tilted to the east, then fell to the west. They couldn't even stand properly. Not good. Something happened to the elder ancestor. Quickly go find the first elder. The captain of the guards grabbed a guard and directly tossed him towards the gate, while he was shaken until he kneeled on the ground from Ancestor Mo's mighty pressure. That guard, who was tossed out, was an intelligent one. After landing, before he could even stand firmly, he had already spread his legs and run forward without delay. It could be said that Central Palace's first elder hadn't been nearly as busy, if the past few years were added together, as these past few days. First, the divine spirit tree was stolen. Next, the treasure storage pavilion had been robbed clean of its contents. These 2 matters which touched Central Palace's foundation made the first elder so busy that he was badly burned out. He hadn't slept for 5 days in a row. As a matter of fact, he had just decided that he must recover his mental strength, but before he could close his eyes, he saw a guard run over, staggering. First elder, something bad has happened. It is an important matter. First elder's brows creased fiercely. He glowered at the guard who had just run over at flying speed. With an ice-cold and terror-inducing tone, he said, "You better have an extremely good reason for coming here. Otherwise, you can take responsibility for the consequences." First Elder, something happened to Elder Ancestor. Please hurry and go take a look. The guard didn't have time to justify himself. He was so anxious that his entire head was covered in sweat. The First Elder's heart jumped violently. It can't be that even the Elder Ancestor would meet with a mishap, right? Central Palace had 3 treasures. First was the Divine Spirit Tree, second was the Treasure Storage Pavilion, and the third was Emo family's Elder Ancestor, who was ascending to the sovereign rank. Bad things had happened to the first 2. Fortunately, there was still this knowledgeable Elder Ancestor to support First Elder. Now, hearing something had also happened to Elder Ancestor, the First Elder stiffened and coughed up a mouthful of blood. First Elder. This young guard was immediately flabbergasted. He had only said 1 sentence, and the First Elder was already unable to accept the facts? When did the First Elder become so frail? Just at this time, suddenly, a violent yell rang out from afar. This voice carried an endless fury, with a kind of scathing murderous intent that was capable of massacring everything under the heavens. The voice came from the direction of the forbidden area in the east. It's Big Brother. The First Elder's heart suddenly jumped. He resolutely wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth and spread open his legs to run towards the east. On the way there, the First Elder met up with Palace Master Emo. Palace Master Emo had just violently coughed up blood earlier. So, his complexion was now pale and dismal, appearing like a chronically ill patient. The 2 people did not have time to converse, and both hurried towards the location where Elder Ancestor had gone into seclusion. They were both praying in their hearts for nothing bad to have happened to Elder Ancestor. It's all right for the Divine Spirit Tree to be stolen, and it's all right for the Treasure Storage Pavilion to be emptied. But if something were to happen to Elder Ancestor, then Central Palace would also be done for. This kind of consequence, no matter what, Central Palace would not be able to endure it. Chapter 1252, Recoil of Madness, 6. The moment when the 2 experts hastily arrived at the palace where Old Man Emo was in seclusion, the 2 people immediately drew in a cold breath violently, almost fainting. At this time, the palace was on the verge of collapse. Tiles and bricks were falling down continuously. With the way it was tottering, it seemed that, at any moment, it would cave in. An even more shocking sight was those guards placed around the palace protecting it. At this moment, they were all tilted to the east or fell down to the west, lying on the ground. Every one of the 7 apertures, on their heads were bleeding, continuously letting out moans of pain. The Elder Ancestor's furious roar just now actually brought about such a great and formidable force. The First Elder and Palace Master Emo exchanged a glance, a shocked expression flashing through their eyes. Elder Ancestor's cultivation now had sharply increased. Don't know whether this would be a fortune or misfortune for Central Palace. Let's not mention other things. The most important thing is to verify whether something happened to Elder Ancestor or not. Before Palace Master Emo had finished speaking, his figure had already become a ray of light, shooting into the palace hall. The First Elder also very quickly retrieved his gaze, then followed tightly after Palace Master Emo. Who? Just who was it? This daddy orders you to come out. Come out. Furious yells rang out from inside the palace hall. Father! Palace Master Emo quickly stepped forward, wanting to approach Old Man Emo. However, before he even got within 10 meters of him, Old Man Emo directly roared towards him. The pitiful Palace Master Emo couldn't stop in time and was shaken dizzy from Old Man Mo's roar. His chi and blood rolled over in his body, collided with the roar and sent him flying backwards. He stopped only when he hit against a wall. Father! Palace Master Emo looked incredulously at the old man before his eyes, whose disheveled hair made him look like a madman. His eyes were full of disbelief. Old Man Imo seemed as if he didn't recognize Palace Master Imo and growled angrily, "Was it you? Was it you who exchanged this daddy's purple-colored crystal stones? Was it you?" The more Old Man Imo spoke, the angrier he got. He charged over with great strides and a fierce expression, angrily lifting Palace Master Imo up with one hand. The originally tall, sturdy, and imposing expert of the generation was, at this moment, lifted up by Old Man Imo like he was carrying a chicken, extremely easily. "Father, father, it's me. I'm Zishiwa." Palace Master Imo was being clutched so hard that he nearly stopped breathing. This Old Man Imo was truly ruthless, directly clutching a person's neck and lifting them up. First Elder also realized that something was wrong about this situation and hurried forward several steps, calling out anxiously, "Elder brother, quickly let go." "That's your son, your most precious eldest son. Open your eyes and look clearly, First Elder's voice contained the greatest amount of heaven and earth spirit energy that he could unleash. Now, this bellow rushed towards Old Man Imo like a Buddhist truth, and seemed to have sobered up Old Man Imo. Old Man Mo's mind had a split second of clear-headedness. He shook his head and looked at the pitiful scene before his eyes. For a moment, he was in a daze, completely unable to understand what had happened. "Father." Palace Master Imo covered his neck, which had been clutched to the point of breaking, and called out hesitantly, Old Man Imo covered his somewhat aching head. He then casually glanced back. This glance, however, made the veins on his forehead pop out. "Zishiu, who hurt you like this? Quickly tell father. I'll go help you get revenge." Old Man Imo was suddenly furious. Only he could hit his precious son. If someone else dared to hit him, they would die. Palace Master Imo raised his eyebrows speechlessly, silently turning away. If a father hit his son, it was right and unalterable. This grudge was impossible to avenge in this lifetime. First Elder hurriedly sighed, "Elder brother, could it be that you have no impression of what just happened?" "What just happened?" Old Man Mo's face was full of puzzlement. 7 apertures. They are 1 mouth, 2 nostrils, but 1 nose, 2 eyes and 2 ears, so a total of 7. Chapter 1253, Recoil of Madness, 7. Palace Master Imo and First Elder looked at each other in dismay. Finished beating someone up, and afterwards, didn't remember it at all. This was truly a wonderful capability, First Elder said speechlessly, "Elder brother, just now, what happened to you?" "What happened to me?" Elder Ancestor Imo doubtfully rubbed his head. It was also right at this moment that suddenly, Elder Ancestor Imo felt a pain inside his skull. Following tightly behind, the black spots inside his head were like huge waves, rolling by, wave after wave. Elder Ancestor Imo could only sense the darkness before his eyes. Then, his mind became sheets of endless darkness. Immediately following this, his consciousness soon became fuzzy. First Elder had been watching Elder Ancestor Imo all this time, and when he saw Elder Ancestor Imo suddenly break out in cold sweat, he couldn't help but feel alarmed. Elder brother, what's wrong with you?" Palace Master Imo also shouted with worry, "Father, father." However, no matter how the two people shouted, Elder Ancestor Imo stood there blankly, as if he'd become an idiot. Elder Ancestor didn't really become an idiot. Rather, at this time, he was circulating spirit force nonstop to attack the black spots in his brain. Seeing the black spots become increasingly frantic, Imo family's elder ancestor's sight suddenly went dark. Then, while still standing up straight, he directly fell down. "Father!" Palace Master Imo became anxious, and he cried out loudly. However, no matter how loudly he shouted, Elder Ancestor Mo's eyes stayed tightly shut and his jaw was tensed, like he was in extreme pain. First Elder, just what exactly is going on? Palace Master Mo looked towards First Elder anxiously, pleading for him to come up with a plan. At this moment, the First Elder was also at his wits' end. Elder Ancestor Mo had always been like an area of the sky, covering the entire central palace, protecting it rigorously. No one would dare to despise. However, now, this sky had suddenly fallen down. How could First Elder not feel helpless? First Elder! Palace Master Mo shouted loudly, snapping First Elder out of the trance he had sunk into. When First Elder returned to his senses, his complexion was extremely ugly. Elder Brother was probably poisoned. Poisoned? Considering his cultivation, what poison on this continent can infect him? Palace Master Mo completely didn't believe it. Ordinary poisons naturally won't work, but what if it is a mind poison? Originally, First Elder was just guessing, but after he said it out loud, he was 70% certain of his guess. First Elder's gaze wandered all around. Very quickly, he saw the crystal stones that were randomly left scattered on the ground. These are not purple-colored crystal stones. First Elder cried out in alarm as his complexion suddenly changed greatly. Recalling when they had just entered, his elder brother had continuously asked who had stolen and exchanged his purple-colored crystal stones. At that time, he just thought that his elder brother had gone crazy and was spouting nonsense. But now, it seemed that this was indeed real. First Elder crouched down and picked up an empty shell. Inside First Elder's complexion immediately sunk down, so gloomy that one could almost wring out some water. Following along, Palace Master Mo also crouched down. He also picked up a crystal stone shell and recognized it at one glance. These are blue-colored crystal stones that have already been absorbed. How did it end up like this? Elder Brother's purple-colored crystal stones really was switched by someone? An expression of astonishment spread over First Elder's entire face as he stared in shock at Palace Master Mo. For a moment, Palace Master Mo didn't know what to do either. Restrictions were placed on this palace hall. Additionally, there are guards surrounding it, giving it heavy protection. Let alone to say, Elder Brother is also at the peak of the saint rank. First Elder firmly drew in a deep breath of cold air, able to switch out Elder Brother's purple-colored crystal stones while he's under such heavy guard. On this earth, how many people could there possibly be? Are you saying? Palace Master Mo was about to say the names of 2 people to choose from. No, according to what I know, that person from Purgatory City has gone into seclusion, just like Elder Brother. Additionally, considering his character, he would feel that it's beneath him to do this sort of thing. Chapter 1254, Recoil of Madness, 8. The First Elder denied again. As for that other person, you couldn't find head or tail of the divine dragon. Likewise, it's even more beneath their dignity to do such a thing. Then, just who is this expert that would move against us Central Palace, time and time again? Mo Zishu felt that he had an extremely painful headache. Don't know. First Elder also had a headache and rubbed his temples. Thinking back and forth about this doesn't fit those few people's style at all. First Elder simply didn't take Su Luo into consideration. This was because from his perspective, the person with the highest cultivation in Su Luo's party was only at the 8th rank, completely unable to stir up even a bit of a wave. First Elder took a deep breath. Right now, the most important thing isn't to catch the black hand behind the scenes, because even if they knew who was behind this, Central Palace still had no way to deal with him. After all, if this person could steal the Divine Spirit Tree, loot the treasure storage pavilion, and inflict serious damage to Elder Ancestor Mo, how could this be an ordinary person? Right now, The most important thing is to help Elder Ancestor to expel the contamination in his mind. First Elder went straight to the main point. Palace Master Emo had a major headache. The Divine Spirit tree is gone. The 6 Divine Spirit fruits on that tree are also completely gone with it. All the elixirs and medicine in the treasure storage pavilion, even medicinal herbs, were all stolen. Not even a leaf remained. First Elder's complexion immediately darkened. Palace Master Emo continued to grumble helplessly and sadly. Even that last Divine Spirit fruit was sent to Su Luo to raise her for her blood. Now, we can't take out even a bit of spirit medicine. Central Palace had become poor to this degree. If it were to spread out, who would believe it? However, in fact, now, they were even worse off than a beggar. Hearing Palace Master Mo's words, First Elder's eyes, however, suddenly flashed. Su Luo, that's right, precisely that Su Luo. First Elder shouted this loudly and directly turned around to rush outside. Palace Master Emo also wasn't a fool. Being reminded like this by First Elder, he also immediately understood. That was right, just now, he had still been sighing about how Central Palace didn't have any spirit medicine. In fact, the most effective spirit medicine was from Su Luo, whose body contained the medicinal scarlet blood Ningpo figwort. To complain about being poor when there was such legendary super medicine, he really was being too foolish just now. Consequently, Palace Master Emo was in a very good mood as he waited for First Elder to bring Su Luo, this human blood medicine, over. At an unknown and remote courtyard in Central Palace, Su Luo had just returned when she saw Nangong Luyun slowly finish cultivating. He opened his eyes, which were bright like stars. "You're back?" The corners of Nangong Luyun's mouth hooked up into a demonically charming smile. With a reach of his hand, he pulled Su Luo down into his warm chest. Su Luo giggled as she pinched his face. "Seeing how your complexion is much better, your cultivation must have recovered quite a bit, right? It's all thanks to the efforts of my family's Luo girl." Nangong Luyun seized the opportunity to stealthily kiss Su Luo on her cheek in a joyful mood. "The effects of divine spirit fruits in restoring my cultivation is indeed quite good. Right now, I'm already at the peak of the 9th rank." When Su Luo heard this, her heart was even more joyous. "If it's like what you said, then, very quickly, you'll be restored to your original cultivation." Nangong Luyun's eyes were like the stars in the night sky, flickering with a dazzling and resplendent radiance. He nodded with a smile, There was even an unexpected pleasant surprise from having his cultivation restored, but this must be kept secret for the time being. "Luo, you've come back?" Beichen Ing and Ziyin returned from wandering aimlessly outside. Seeing Su Luo, he rushed in like an artillery shell. Ziyin had wanted to pull him to a stop, but wasn't able to do so. Nangong Luyun glared resentfully at the irksome presence of this hindrance. At this moment, Beichen Ying's eyes and thoughts were all focused on Su Luo. Although he felt a chill on his back, but he didn't really pay much attention to it. He pulled Su Luo along with stars filling his eyes. Luo, this time, what did you teleport back? Why do I smell something so good?" Chapter 1255, Recoil of Madness, 9. Were you born in the year of the dog? Su Luo pulled back her arm unhappily. She took out a small transparent brocade box from her space and handed it over in passing. "Having seen you, you have a share. So, I'll give this to you." Beichening smilingly opened the case. Originally, he was just making fun of her, so he didn't really care about it. However, when he saw the thing inside the case, his entire person stiffened immediately. 7 Nights Black Flower. In a flash, Beichen Ing and Ziyin opened their eyes wide, their gazes fixed on that enchantingly gorgeous flower which was in full bloom inside the brocade case. They were so startled that they even momentarily forgot to breathe. A loving and spoiling smile flashed through Nangong Luyun's eyes. Soon after, he pinched Su Luo's extremely thin and slender shoulders. His family's treasured Luo girl was just awesome. The things she gave out would be out of the ordinary. This 7 Nights Black Flower was indeed very suitable for Beichening. The 7 Nights Black Flower grew in an extremely dangerous environment. It must grow in Snowfield Plateau, and there has to be a lava flowing underneath its location in the Snowfield Plateau. Only under such harsh conditions would a 7 Nights Black Flower bloom. One might well ask, would there be boiling lava flowing below the Snowfield Plateau? Common sense would dictate that this was simply impossible. However, it was precisely this impossibility that brought about the 7 Nights Black Flower's mystical properties. It was said that after consuming the 7 Nights Black Flower, one could naturally withstand attacks from ice and fire attributes. Beichening had dual wind and water attributes. Originally, he could be restrained by ice and fire attributes. However, after consuming the 7 Nights Black Flower, he would naturally be immune to ice and fire dual systems attack in the same rank as him. What could be more fitting than this? Then, you don't like it? If you don't like it, before Su Luo even finished speaking, she saw Beichening snatch up the 7 Nights Black Flower with one hand and immediately take a bite of a petal. After that, he protected the flower in his embrace, simultaneously muttering unclearly, "I've already taken a bite of it," seeing him protecting it like it's a treasure. Afraid she would steal it from him, 3 black lines immediately appeared on Su Luo's forehead. Could this grown sunny boy be any more childish? What about me? What about me? Ziyin tugged on Su Luo's sleeve pitifully. Su Luo unhappily glanced at her. This was the so-called proximity to different environments provides different influences. Ziyin had stayed with Beichen for too long and also got infected by his love of pretending to look pitiful. Even if I miss someone, how could I leave out my family, Ziyin? Ah. You say, am I right or not? Su Luo was all smiles as she took out a brocade box from her sleeve and handed it over to Ziyin. Your present? Take it. In fact, Su Luo genuinely liked to loot others' hidden treasure troves and then return to play Santa Claus by splitting the gifts. Seeing her little companions happily holding the gifts she distributed and then spreading it around, she felt very satisfied. She could even ignore all the previous thrilling dangers she had experienced. What is this? Ziyin slowly opened the brocade box, full of curiosity. Before she even saw it, Beichening had taken the lead to cry out in surprise, "Wow, this is above 9th grade spirit grass. Ziyin, you've struck gold." After an elemental elf swallowed the above 9th grade spirit grass, very likely, it would automatically be promoted a rank. This present was indeed like it was custom-made for Ziyin. Luo, how did you suddenly have all these great things? Ziyin was simply extremely amazed. For Su Luo to be able to select presents which were the most suitable for them, it meant that she had a lot of leeway in selecting the gifts. If Su Luo already had this above 9th grade spirit grass previously, she would have already taken it out back when they were pulling out the Chungying sword in the 9 different palace halls, rather than delaying it till now. Su Luo's eyes narrowed halfway, and the smile on her face slowly widened. Then finally, she was smiling almost to the point of convulsing with laughter. Chapter 1256, Recoil of Madness. 10. Girl, if you have something to be happy about, why don't you tell everyone so we can be happy together? Why are you stealthily being happy alone? Ah? Ziyin unhappily helped Su Luo rub her belly, because at this moment, Su Luo was laughing so hard, she almost couldn't breathe. Su Luo laughed until tears came out. With great difficulty, she finally managed to stop laughing. Then, she slowly told everyone what happened today from start to finish. What? You actually stole? Stole from Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion? Beichening was so startled that he nearly bit his tongue. Lower your voice. You're afraid that others wouldn't know, right? Ziyin pinched Beichening's belly. Ouch, ouch, ouch. I got it. Eldest Mississippi quickly let go. Beichening hurriedly begged for mercy. Seeing this pair of buffoons, the corners of Su Luo's lips curled into a smile. I didn't just steal from Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion. Rather, I cleaned it out. Clean? Cleaned it out as in you stole everything? Bei Qining felt his mind becoming dizzy. This fact was truly too incredible. This was Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion. Those were treasures that were accumulated over countless generations and countless years. Yet this girl actually stole everything, leaving nothing. Bei Qining thought of his own family's treasure storage pavilion, and a cold chill ran down his spine. Thinking back to when he first saw Luo Luo 2 years ago, back then, she was still Su family's unloved daughter birthed by a concubine. Her strength at that time were merely of the 3rd or 4th rank. That year, Bei Qining could say without the slightest hesitation that he could extinguish Su Luo's life with just a fingertip, like crushing an ant. However, in just 2 short years, this girl had already grown to a point where even he had to look up to her. Although her strength was the same as his, but look at all the things she'd done. Even his family's ancestor wouldn't be able to do them. Bei Qining's eyes were full of stars, with matchless worship, pulling on her little hand like a lackey. Sister-in-law, from now on, you'll be my object of my worship. Su Luo laughed happily as she patted his bowed head. Little shadow, I haven't finished telling this story of mine, and yet you're already groveling like this? Once I finish telling this story, won't you have to kneel down then? What? The story isn't over? Bei Qining was shocked. Su Luo looked at his shocked expression with great satisfaction. Sitting on the chair, she leisurely lifted one leg over the other, swinging her leg contentedly. Sister-in-law, my blood brother's wife, you still have other glorious achievements? Tell them for this lowly one to understand the world. Bei Qining, like a lackey, moved his stool to sit at her feet. There was a burst of wind, like a wisp of smoke. He had run over. Then, right when Su Luo was about to explain in detail how she was teeming with luck, and telling the story of how in the midst of perils, she had swapped out Old Man Mo's purple-colored crystal stones, a furious yell suddenly came from the eastern forbidden area. This voice seemed to contain the endless spirit energy of heaven and earth. Even though they were separated by a great distance, these few people here were still shaken until their chi and blood rolled over and over. What's going on? Bei Qining suddenly stood up in surprise. This was the story I wanted to tell. Su Luo felt that this matter could be either big or small. It was still better to inform everyone. In case something happens, when the time comes, everyone would need to have their guards up. Looking in the eastern direction, Nangong Liuyun's eyes narrowed. If his guess wasn't wrong, the earlier yell was full of inexhaustible pain and lamentation. Additionally, this voice seemed to belong to the Mo family's elder ancestor. Could it be his Luo girl was too daring to have even played a trick on the Mo family's elder ancestor? It had to be said, Your Highness Prince Jean, you've figured out the truth. Your Luo girl does indeed have a thief's courage that covers the sky. She ran to the side of the tiger's mouth to pluck a whisker, and she really plucked the whisker off. Chapter 1257, A Matter of Life or Death 1. What's going on, ah? Like a curious baby, Bei Qining stood on the tips of his toes and looked around in all directions. When he finished doing that, he even jumped up on a tree and looked towards the east. It's definitely Old Man Mo howling madly. The corners of Su Luo's lips raised into a complacent smile. Consequently, Su Luo seized this opportunity to tell the others about the sinister thing she did to Old Man Mo. Su Luo had always been an eloquent speaker. On top of that, this matter was to the satisfaction of everyone. As a result, Bei Qining and Ziyin listened until they were fired up, wishing they could personally go and tease Old Man Mo until he ran around in circles. Really fun. Simply too amusing. Ziyin waved her fist around excitedly, her eyes twinkling like stars. How unfortunate. At that time, why wasn't I at the scene? If I could personally see that old ancestor Mo, who always had his nostrils pointed up to the sky, eat a loss, how amusing would that be? Nangong Luyun stroked Su Luo's head helplessly. With regards to this girl, he was simply speechless. If she wanted to play with fire, then fine. However, To think that she went as far as to set the forest on fire. Girl, don't tell me you don't know what is called playing with fire? Nangong Liuyun's words carried a touch of helplessness. Huh. Su Luo glanced back at him in puzzlement, the bewilderment clear in her eyes. Nangong Luyun explained patiently while stressing each word. The divine spirit tree was dug out by you. All the elixirs inside the Central Palace's treasure storage pavilion were also all taken by you. Now, old ancestor Imo is ill. You say, what do you think Central Palace will do? Ziyin, in a schadenfreude manner, said, haha, to not have spirit medicines at the crucial moment also serves that old ancestor Imo right. Nangong Luyun knocked Ziyan's head unhappily. Spirit medicine? Right now, there's a living spirit medicine right before our eyes. Very clearly, these few excited guys had forgotten about Su Luo's situation quite thoroughly. Ah! Bei Qining returned to his senses and immediately shrieked. Right now, Luo Luo is the only elixir. Then doesn't that mean Bei Qingying's pair of bright, pure, and limpid like glass eyes stared at Su Luo foolishly and blankly? Su Luo immediately stiffened on the spot. She had actually forgotten this matter entirely. Right now, old ancestor Imo was ill, and Central Palace didn't have any spirit medicine they could take out. So, wouldn't they directly set their plans on her? Su Luo pulled her hair in annoyance. If she had known earlier that it would be like this, then she would have left a bit of spirit medicine for treating the mind. Unfortunately, it was too late to do anything now. He came. Bei Qining nervously made a big fuss. The first elder just came over. Bei Qinying's words had just finished when first elder appeared before everyone. The first elder's expression was black. His ice-cold gaze stared at Su Luo like a viper. Traces of dark radiance flickered in his eyes. What do you want to do? Bei Qining took a step forward, blocking the completely unconcealed gaze which the first elder used to look at Su Luo. Su Luo felt a chill in her heart. First elder had arrived very quickly, and seeing his appearance, there was no leeway to discuss this issue. Su Luo was afraid Bei Qining would get hurt by accident, so she walked out from behind him and looked at first elder with a water-like shallow gaze. Although, in terms of strength, Su Luo wasn't a match for this first elder, but the expert aura she was emitting from her whole body gave birth to a restraining fear in people. First elder was slightly shaken by Su Luo's gaze. When he opened his eyes wider to take another look, that kingly power pressing down on him had vanished without a trace. Su girl, take a walk with this elder. The first elder turned around and wanted to pull Su Luo away. However, before his hand could touch Su Luo's right arm, he was obstructed by someone. Nangong Luyun hooked his lips up into a smile that wasn't a smile. His distinctly handsome appearance carried a hint of cold intent. First elder came here so hurriedly. Don't know what brought you here. Chapter 1258, A Matter of Life or Death, 2. First elder wasn't willing to face Nangong Luyun, because this youngster's natural talent and extraordinary growth was too fast. He could just envision, not long in the future, he would be like his master, a king that looked disdainfully at the world out of the corner of his eye. This matter has nothing to do with you. First elder had a dark expression, coldly glaring at Nangong Luyun. Nangong Luyun stood in front of Su Luo with a graceful posture and slightly raised his sword-like eyebrows. You want to move against my woman, you say, whether this has anything to do with me or not? First elder's eyes turned sluggish. Weren't there talks of this young master Nangong being married to Yunqing? How is this possible? First elder glared at Nangong Luyun with a bad expression. Young master Nangong, it's better not to randomly recognize some insignificant person, so as to not bring unnecessary trouble to yourself. These words could be said to be full of threat. Nangong Liuyun's thick sword-like eyebrows were slightly restrained. His eyes' expression sank. For people who knew him, His Highness Prince Jean was angry. Yet, First Elder still didn't realize, he said in an ice-cold manner. Young Master Nangong may not know before, Central Palace's master was just discussing your and Mo family's third Mrs. Lifetime's major event with the Emperor of Eastern Lit. The meaning in First Elder's words were very clear. He warned that Nangong Luyun needn't ruin this marriage alliance between Central Palace and Eastern Ling Empire because of Su Luo, this loathsome girl. Nangong Luyun, hearing these words, actually started to laugh heartily. To discuss the lifetime major event of third Miss Mo and this king? Ha ha ha. Is your third Miss Mo Yunqing? First Elder's eyes tightened. He and Mo Zishu had already sternly commanded that no one was allowed to mention the scandal between Mo Yunfeng and Mo Yunqing. But now, hearing young Master Nangong's meaning, he actually knew of this matter? Thinking of this matter, First Elder's old face couldn't help but to turn red. He felt ashamed. Nangong Liuyun's thin lips perked up, turning into a disdainful sneer. First Elder, this large lush green hat, I, Nangong Luyun, cannot bear it. It's best for you to find somebody better qualified than me. Bei Chening and Zi Yin covered up the corner of their mouths, laughing with hee-hee sounds. First Elder very fiercely slanted them a harsh glance. But not only did these two guys not fear him, on the contrary, they even put down their hands and laughed wildly with ha-ha sounds. First Elder immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. He knew these several people must already know about the matter between Mo Yunfeng and Mo Yunqing. Otherwise, their reactions wouldn't be like this. Now, to investigate who had leaked this secret was already meaningless. First Elder coldly snorted, pushed away these eyesores and extended his large palm to clamp down on Su Luo's arm. Su Luo's facial features were like condensed frost, giving off an ice-cold air. First Elder, this is to invite with force? First Elder coldly sneered. So what if it's to invite with force? You, this loathsome girl, still have the leeway to rebel. To tell you the truth, the reason Central Palace invited you is for you to become human blood medicine. Now is the time for you to contribute. His just finished speaking when First Elder's figure rose up sharply from the ground. Like a legendary large bird spreading its wings, he flew far away, carrying Su Luo. I order you to stop. Stop. Luo Bei Chening saw the situation wasn't good, and he hurriedly went out to chase after them. However, before he could run a few steps, First Elder's figure had already disappeared. What's to be done? Luo was snatched away by that smelly old man. The consequences are too horrible to contemplate. Third senior brother. You think of a way, Ziyin, seeing that Nangong Liuyun's expression was so carefree, became even more anxious. This really was, the emperor was not anxious, and the eunuch being anxious. She was nearly worried to death. Ziyin ran around in circles in the room, not knowing what would be best for her to do. Nangong Luyun looked in the direction First Elder had departed in. Only after a long time did he retrieve his gaze, and he faintly said a sentence. Nothing will happen to Luo. Chapter 1259, A Matter of Life or Death, 3. His Luo was so clever. She destroyed the Central Palace's millennium-old foundation with the power of one person. How could such a Luo let something happen to herself? That's right, Luo is highly intelligent, her luck is heaven-defying, but her strength still isn't enough. An 8th rank put outside, could walk around horizontally, but in front of those several old farts of the Central Palace, she simply isn't any different from ants. Bei Chening was so anxious that sweat seeped out of his forehead. His series of words directly attacked Nangong Luyun. How could Nangong Luyun not know what he was saying? But, just now, he deliberately talked to the First Elder about this and that, finally, was able to win some precious time for Luo. As for the following matter, just let him cooperate with Su Luo and put on a large-scale huge play. Su Luo, being carried by First Elder, continuously fly towards the east. Not too long afterwards, she had returned to the place she previously did the evil deeds. When Su Luo left before, this place was still fine. The surroundings were also clean, not contaminated with a speck of dust, But now this scene was simply too horrible to see. Bodies were lying in disorder around the palace's surroundings. Each and every one of their heads and bodies were covered with bloodstains. The 7 apertures on their heads were bleeding nonstop. Clearly, they had suffered a strong attack. The originally orderly and lavish palace, now, also was on the verge of collapse. Sand and stones constantly tumbled down, as if it would cave in at any moment. A flame excitedly bounced up and down in Su Luo's eyes. It went without saying, this certainly was caused by Old Man Mo's movements when he went mad. Su Luo stroked her chin, the corner of her mouth hooking up into a smile with an unclear meaning. The first editor was completely unaware that the main culprit of this devastation was the Miss Su that he had in his hand. If he knew, he would directly hack Su Luo into dregs with a blade. First Elder also didn't stop, directly lifting Su Luo to enter into the palace. At this moment, the situation in the palace was also not too good. The originally sleeping elder ancestor didn't know why he would suddenly wake up. His mind wasn't too clear-headed when he first woke up. One moment he was furious, and another, he would cry wildly. When he was furious, this old man completely disregarded the consequences. He would destroy all the decorations in his surroundings. When he cried, that sound was like sudden claps of thunder, making people's eardrums feel extremely painful. Those guards that were passed out outside had been attacked by this sound wave time and time again until they passed out. When the first elder carried Su Luo inside, this old man Imo was just getting angry. His actions when angry were very simple. It was just, destroy. He broke everything in front of him into fine powder. At this moment, he was pressing down on Imo Zishu, trying to beat him to death. Smelly boy, your daddy, can't kill you. I will beat you to death. Old Man Mo's hair was disheveled with bloodshot eyes. He appeared sinister and terrible. He pulled Imo Zishu as simply as if lifting a sack, fist after fist, hitting him in the belly. Pitiful Imo Zishu, the grand and dignified Central Palace's master, now, was beaten to the point of spitting out blood, so delirious, he couldn't even shout out loud. Seeing First Elder come over, this Central Palace's master, that was always widely known as being strong, almost cried. Uncle, look at this voice even carrying a sobbing tone. Just hearing it made people's nose go sour. Seeing that Central Palace's master's face was completely covered in blood, First Elder was so startled that his eyes were about to pop out. His entire body seemed to be like a carved sculpture and stood in place for a long time, staring blankly. Only when he heard Palace Master Mo's sobbing tone did he wake up. First Elder immediately tossed Su Luo aside, urgently rushed up 2 steps. In one move, he grabbed Elder Ancestor's hands that were beating him like a sack, and in a stern voice, he swiftly called, "Big brother, Zishu is about to be beaten to death by you. Quickly stop." It could be considered that First Elder Mo's luck was good. This angry shout of his shouted Elder Ancestor Imo awake. Chapter 1260, A Matter of Life and Death. 4. Elder Ancestor Imo pushed aside his loose long hair, then looked at First Elder with an innocent expression. That gaze was cold and indistinct, making First Elder's cautious heart feel panicky. Big brother. First Elder's palm waved in front of him. In fact, his heart was also very unsure. At this moment, there was a strange quietness all around. Elder Ancestor Mo's blank gaze was staring at First Elder, unblinkingly staring at him, a perplexed expression flashing through his eyes. The First Elder and Imo Zishu looked at each other in dismay. In their hearts, they were trying to guess if Elder Ancestor Imo was awake or not. Elder Ancestor Mo's foolish blank gaze moved from the First Elder's body and looked at his surroundings before stopping on Su Luo's body. Su Luo's heart suddenly gave a thump sound of being dropped. An ominous premonition quickly arose from the bottom of her heart, rapidly wandering through her 4 limbs and 100 of bones. What was this Elder Ancestor Imo about to do? Su Luo subconsciously took a step back and wanted to run away. However, just at this moment of imminent peril, this elder ancestor Imo shot towards Su Luo like a male eagle. Su Luo still hadn't reacted when her right wrist was already bitten by elder ancestor Imo. The flowing blood was immediately sucked into his mouth. Su Luo was angry and furious all at once. Cultivating to as high a state as elder ancestor Imo, was it an instinctive response to good stuff? See here, First Elder hadn't said anything when this deranged elder ancestor Imo directly pounced on her to suck her blood. First Elder, seeing this, exchanged a glance with Imo Zishu, a trace of happiness flickering in their eyes. Maybe after sucking Su Luo's blood, elder ancestor Imo could recover his clear-headedness. Moreover, he might even be able to break through and be promoted another rank. Both of them were thinking happily like this, looking favorably on Su Luo, who had become spirit medicine. At this moment, Su Luo's mood was simply bad to the extreme. Although elder ancestor Imo was insane, but his instinct was still there. Don't know how his mouth was grown, his blood-sucking speed was simply astonishing. Su Luo even suspected, if he continued to suck like this, in less than a stick of incense's time, she would become an air-dried, mummy-like corpse. What's to be done? Su Luo was continuously pondering over this question in her head. Su Luo hadn't expected that old man Mo would come up so directly to madly suck her blood. Therefore, her original stratagem, now, wouldn't work. Just when Su Luo's brain was quickly spinning in her mind, a familiar voice sounded. Loathsome girl, how precious is your blood? And to be sucked away by this old bastard just like this? Won't you be distressed over its loss? The little stone woke up from its cultivation. One glance at this situation, and it then immediately flew into a rage. I'm in the midst of trying to think of a way now. Only, in front of absolute strength, any crafty plots and machinations were just paper tigers. Su Luo thought helplessly. Humph humph, this rotten old man, old bastard, actually dares to suck loathsome girl's blood. He is impatient with living. The little stone said in a rage. The little stone was a typical model of a super, narrow-minded, and liked to cover up his people's errors type. He normally would find Su Luo objectionable, then fly into a rage, constantly scolding her. But whoever dared to harm a hair on Su Luo, he would be so angry to the point of itching to burn down the other side's whole family. A trace of craftiness flashed through Su Luo's eyes. She deliberately didn't fight back. Wasn't it precisely to request this little stone grandpa to help? Now, the little stone's reaction was just like she had anticipated. However, Su Luo still feigned a weak and miserable condition. Then what's to be done? I'm almost about to become a mummy. Little stone heavily snorted. Dare to suck blood. Have the ability to suck and not spit it out. Su girl, stand there and don't move. Okay. Su Luo immediately agreed, with excited rays of light flashing in her eyes. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.